Chapter 230. A crimson ray of immortal light bloomed around him. A wisp of immortal Tao circled around him. At this moment, heaven and earth shook uncontrollably. The strange face in the firmament twisted. Clearly, the appearance of the power of human Tao made the laws of this world unstable, as if it would collapse at any time. Heaven's executioner. All of a sudden, Yi Xian's glabella glowed. The world gradually collapsed as a 3-inch halberd emerged from his glabella. It grew to a 3-meter-long halberd in Yi Xian's hand. At this moment, the power of all living beings enveloped Yi Xian's body. His face was expressionless as the Heaven's executioner halberd in his hand released an unprecedented murderous aura. The Heaven's executioner halberd was the #1 killing weapon of all time. No one knew who had forged this weapon, nor did anyone know what kind of power it possessed. However, according to the records of the immortal scripture, the Heaven's executioner halberd had existed since the beginning of time. To truly wield it, one had to be at least at the level of an immortal to be able to unleash less than 10% of its power. Yi Xian had never used this murderous weapon before. However, with the support of the power of all living beings, he could finally use the Heaven's executioner halberd for the time being. He wanted to use the #1 killing weapon of all time to destroy this so-called divine punishment. The 3 questions of heaven and earth, the thunderous voice of heaven and earth sounded again. However, this time, Yi Xian wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death. The Heaven's executioner halberd glowed. This was a ferocious light that pierced the heavens and earth. It rose from the river of the 9 heavens as if it wanted to pierce the light of dawn and shatter the world. Heaven's executioner. These 2 simple words came out of Yi Xian's mouth. There was no aura or earth-shattering scene. When Yi Xian struck the heavens with his halberd, the entire world was plunged into darkness. No one could see what was happening. The darkness was boundless and endless. This situation lasted for 7 days and 7 nights until a beam of immortal light tore through the darkness. The world once again bloomed with its original light. Beneath the firmament, in the void, sweet rain fell from the sky, and blood lotuses sprouted from the ground. The blood lotuses bloomed in the void, and celestial music from the 9 heavens could be heard. The shadow of a divine dragon roamed the firmament, and the 9 heavens-colored phoenix whistled through the universe. They were flying and circling above Yi Xian's head, and the immortal light that descended from the firmament enveloped Yi Xian. At this moment, the heaven-destroying halberd had already disappeared. Yi Xian placed his hands behind his back and looked up at the heavens under the envelopment of the guiding celestial light. His eyes were fleeting and deep, and the aura around him was undergoing a terrifying transformation. His majestic blood chi transformed into a blood-colored celestial light. His body looked as if it was made of Vajra, and a celestial aura bloomed around him. It made people want to bow down and worship him. Yi Dao Yu, congratulations on transcending the tribulation and becoming an immortal. Unknowingly, the moon goddess appeared beside Yi Xian excitedly. She looked at Yi Xian with a look of awe that she had never shown before. The moon goddess had never heard of a demonic immortal cultivator transcending the 3 questions of heaven and earth and the great tribulation of heaven and earth. But today, she witnessed the birth of a legend. How could she not be in awe of Yi Xian? At this moment, Yi Xian stood between the heavens and the earth. The blood-colored celestial light around him was steaming. He looked up at the endless firmament, and his heart did not waver at all because he had become an immortal in the mortal world. The gates to the immortal realm did not open for me. Yi Xian laughed at himself. There was no disappointment in his eyes, because he had already expected this outcome. He was a blood cultivator, and there was no spiritual energy in his body. Even though he had become an immortal in the mortal world, the gates to the immortal realm would not open for him. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the moon goddess comforted him softly. Yi Dao Yu, you have just transcended the tribulation and stepped into the celestial immortal realm. As long as you use the osmanthus tree to convert your blood energy into spiritual energy, you will naturally be able to attract the gates to the immortal realm. celestial immortal. Yi Xian smiled mysteriously. His eyes were deep as he said, is it really just a celestial immortal? Yi Daoyu. Could it be? Could it be that you have directly stepped into the Xian immortal realm? The moon goddess guessed in shock. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not answer her question. Only he knew that when he transcended the 9 heavenly tribulations as a Mahayana realm cultivator and experienced the 3 questions of heaven and earth, if it was just a simple transformation into a celestial immortal, then what was the difference between him and an ordinary immortal cultivator? One had to know that Yi Xian cultivated the immortal scripture and even mastered the forbidden chapter of the immortal scripture. His starting point was much, much higher than an ordinary immortal cultivator. However, Yi Xian understood that although he had become an immortal in the mortal world and there was no spiritual energy in his body, he was definitely not in the celestial immortal realm. As for what level his cultivation had reached, Yi Xian had a vague guess. However, this guess could only be confirmed when he returned to the Blood Sea battlefield. You have been watching for so long. It's time to come out, right? Suddenly, Yi Xian looked into the distant void. His voice was calm. Blood River congratulates Yi Daoyu on transcending the tribulation and becoming an immortal. A blood-colored shadow walked out of the void. As the blood-colored light around him dissipated, a benevolent-looking Taoist appeared in front of Yi Xian and the moon goddess. Ah! You are... When the moon goddess saw this person's face, her face instantly turned pale. She covered her forehead in pain and screamed, as if she was trying hard to remember something. Little girl, Yuan Mo suppressed your immortal god's remnant soul under the Blood Sea. If it wasn't for the moon goddess, who took care of you many times, you wouldn't have lived to this day. The Taoist smiled faintly. Blood River Patriarch. You are the Blood River Patriarch? The moon goddess woke up from her pain. She finally remembered that the person in front of her was the Blood River Patriarch who had killed her 10,000 years ago. For the past 10,000 years, she had been suppressed under the Blood Sea, and this person was the main culprit. You are not dead yet? The moon goddess screamed. Her face turned pale. She looked at the Taoist with eyes filled with hatred that had never been seen before. Even a profound immortal like you didn't die. How could I die? The Blood River Patriarch was still smiling, but his eyes were fixed on Yi Xian. From time to time, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. I'll kill you. The hatred of life and death drove the moon goddess completely mad. She formed a seal with both hands and slapped at the Blood River Patriarch. Unfortunately, the Blood River Patriarch only smiled in the face of the moon goddess's spell. He didn't seem to do anything, but with a light flick of his sleeve, the moon goddess's spell was instantly annihilated without a trace. Little girl, for the sake of the moon goddess, I won't bicker with you. But if you don't know when to stop, don't blame me for being ruthless. The Blood River Patriarch's voice was slightly cold. Spots of blood-colored immortal light were produced, turning into an immortal binding rope that wrapped around the moon goddess and imprisoned her in the void. Fellow Taoist Yi, this Blood River ancestor is on the same side as Yuan Mo. Back then, he was the one who helped Yuan Mo kill the immortals and gods of the heavens. Right now, he's only a remnant soul. Hurry up and kill him. The moon goddess was bound by the immortal binding rope as she loudly asked Yi Xian for help. Chapter 231. Unfortunately, Yi Xian ignored the woman. Instead, he looked deeply at Patriarch Blood River and said calmly, You and Yuan Ling have been plotting in the Blood Sea battlefield for 10,000 years. Now, you dare to appear in front of me. Aren't you afraid that Yuan Ling will suspect you? As Yi Xian's words faded, Patriarch Blood River held his breath. He looked at Yi Xian with a look of horror. Yi Daoyu has seen me before. Patriarch Blood River probed. However, if one listened carefully, they would discover that his voice contained a slight tremor. Clearly, he was extremely shaken by Yi Xian's words. Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. He looked at Patriarch Blood River's eyes and said calmly, I believe you should know that there is a taboo chapter in the Undying Immortal Sutra. And this taboo chapter contains a secret technique called Soul Void. This technique allows one to escape into the void. When cultivated to perfection, one can peek at all things in the world. How can I not know of your existence? Immeasurable heavenly sovereign. Ancestor Blood River's face was deathly pale. His pupils dilated at this moment, and he unconsciously cupped his hands. A trace of fear clearly flashed through his eyes as he looked at Yi Xian. Patriarch Blood River had long guessed that Yi Xian might have obtained the taboo chapter in the Undying Immortal Sutra. However, this guess had never been confirmed. But today, he learned that Yi Xian had already grasped the taboo chapter. How could he not be horrified? One had to know that the Undying Immortal Sutra had been passed down since the creation of the world. Countless people had cultivated it, but without exception, no one had obtained the taboo chapter. And this taboo chapter was the most important part of the Undying Immortal Sutra. Yi Xian was still smiling, but there was an inexplicable look in his eyes when he looked at Patriarch Blood River. As the saying goes, there are only eternal benefits and no eternal enemies. Fellow Taoist Blood River, for you to appear in front of me, I believe you wish to leave yourself a way out, right? Upon hearing Yi Xian's words, Patriarch Blood River's expression changed as though he was considering something. Clearly, what Yi Xian said was indeed what Patriarch Blood River was thinking. However, he could not completely decide if he should stand on Yi Xian's side. If he made the wrong choice, not only would Yi Xian die, but he would also be buried with Yi Xian. Yi Daoyu, why don't we make a deal? Patriarch Blood River remained silent for a long time before probing Yi Xian. Oh. Yi Xian lightly smiled and said, I wonder what kind of deal you want to make with me. If you kill Yuan Ling and help me take back the Origin Pearl, I'll give you a great opportunity. Even if you enter the Earth Immortal's world, you'll be able to transform into Daoyuo Jingxian in less than 10,000 years and become a revered ancestor, Patriarch Blood River said with narrowed eyes. Fellow Taoist Blood River, do you take me for a 3-year-old child? Yi Xian's eyes gradually turned cold as killing intent appeared in his eyes as he looked at Patriarch Blood River. You want me to trust you with your empty words? Isn't that the greatest joke in the world? Yi Daoyu, do you think that Yuan Ling is Yuan Mo's remnant soul? Patriarch Blood River did not answer Yi Xian's question directly. Is that not the case? Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. You're absolutely wrong. Yuan Mo died 10,000 years ago, and the person who killed him was Yuan Ling. Patriarch Blood River's face was deathly pale as if he had sunk into a distant memory. The fear in his eyes was extremely strong. Yi Daoyu, I can solemnly tell you that Yuan Ling will never let you go, just like how he did not let Yuan Mo go back then. Even if you have the heaven-destroying halberd and become an immortal in the mortal world, you can't imagine how terrifying Yuan Ling is. He's plotting against the world, and you're the most important chess piece. I'm just a puppet in his hands. Yi Xian's face darkened as he listened to Patriarch Blood River's explanation. He did not think that he had guessed wrongly. The so-called Yuan Ling was not Yuan Mo's remnant soul at all. Then who was Yuan Ling? I'm very curious. Since you said that Yuan Ling is so powerful, why did he appear before me? Aren't you afraid that he'll kill you? Yi Xian said darkly. Because I don't want to be a puppet. Only by killing Yuan Ling can I truly control my own fate. Patriarch Blood River's face flushed red as his voice trembled. Clearly, he had a long history with Yuan Ling. Tell me, who is Yuan Ling's true self? Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Upon hearing Yi Xian's words, Patriarch Blood River slowly shook his head and said with a wry smile, Fellow Taoist, you might not believe me, but this penniless priest really doesn't know who Yuan Ling's true self is. After interacting with him for 10,000 years, I only know that he's a remnant soul that exists in this world. But according to my guess, he should be a bang. Suddenly, without waiting for ancestor Blood River to finish his words, the winds and clouds in the area changed. The face of the original spirit appeared in the sky, and the demonic light that shook the world raged. Its cold and emotionless voice came from all directions. Blood River, you've said too much. Hum. The world shook as the universe reversed. The Tongtian demonic light enveloped Patriarch Blood River, instantly causing him to vanish. My dear disciple, since you wish to know my true identity, I'll be waiting for you in the ancient battlefield. I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Yuan Ling's voice resounded in the world as the face in the firmament vanished. As for Yi Xian, he watched this scene silently. However, when he opened and closed his eyes, the surrounding void shattered. Regardless of who you are, the only outcome you will face is death. Yi Xian said calmly as the blood-colored immortal light around him shimmered. He waved his sleeves and pulled Celestial Moon into his Meru space. When he took a step forward, he suddenly vanished from the world. Heartbreak Mountain was extremely tall as it towered into the clouds. However, the Heartbreak Mountain today was devoid of birds and ferocious beasts. The undulating mountain range was blooming with Tongtian blood light. The vast and boundless mountain range had actually left the ground and was floating between heaven and earth. A blood-red door opened halfway up the mountain, and the sound of ghosts crying and gods howling could be heard from the door. It made people feel as if their souls were about to be destroyed. Rumble. Blood energy surged for 30,000 kilometers as blood lotuses bloomed all over the sky. Blazing immortal light blotted out the sky and blotted out the sky. In the distant horizon, crimson immortal light bloomed around Yi Xian. He strode across the sky, step by step, the blood lotuses behind him exploding one after another. Thump, thump, thump. It was like the beating of the war drums of slaughter, like the 9 heavens and the rivers of stars rolling in reverse. With every step Yi Xian took, the world trembled and showed faint signs of cracking. My dear disciple, congratulations on ascending to immortality in the mortal world. Today, we will have an end as master and disciple. Within the Blood Sea battlefield, the endless sea of blood was overturning the sky, and millions of souls were wailing. The origin spirit held the bronze scripture in his hand as he stood above the sea of blood. He looked at Yi Xian through the Blood Sea battlefield, and his voice was ancient and hoarse. Chapter 232. The Blood Sea battlefield. Yi Xian had fought against the heavens here. He had risen from the dead here. He had risen from the dead here. He had walked out from here. Now, he had returned. However, he was no longer immortal, but a demonic immortal. He had returned here with the conviction to break free from the shackles of fate. Some people had to be faced, and some things had to be resolved. Yi Xian knew that today, either he or Yuan Ling would die. There had to be a result. Calm, indifferent, and unperturbed. He did not think of anything else. Yi Xian did not want to know what Yuan Ling wanted from him, nor did he want to know what kind of grand scheme Yuan Ling was planning. He only wanted to be invincible and truly break free from Yuan Ling's control. So-called schemes were nothing in the face of absolute power. As long as he could kill them with a single punch, everything would vanish like smoke in thin air. As long as he was invincible, even the heavens could destroy him. Yi Xian came with this conviction. With every step he took, the immortal light around him burned brighter. By the time he entered the blood-colored door, his entire person had turned into a blood-colored flame, blooming with a light that had never been seen before. Thump, thump, thump. The endless blood sea was overturning the sky. Pale white bones bobbed up and down in the blood sea. Yi Xian stood above the blood sea and looked at Yuan Ling from afar. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if ancient great stars were rotating in his eyes. Yuan Ling was surrounded by black gas. He held the bronze scripture in his hand and silently looked at Yi Xian. There was no murderous intent around him. When he opened and closed his eyes, he looked at Yi Xian as if he was looking at a rare treasure. My disciple, do you know that since ancient times, you are the most amazing person I have ever seen? Even Yuan Mo from 10,000 years ago could not compare to you. However, you and I have different thoughts. Today, there will be an end, Yuan Ling said softly without the slightest murderous intent. It was as if he was talking to his closest kin. Yi Xian didn't move. His expression was calm without the slightest ripple. He only said in a low voice, if you're talking about the person who has done me the most in this world, then you're the only one. If you had not saved me back then, I would have turned into a skeleton and died in Heartbreak Mountain. I, Yi Xian, would not have become who I am today. At this point, Yi Xian bowed to Yuan Ling and said, this bow is to thank you for your kindness in nurturing me all these years. The sea of blood surged and the world was silent. Yuan Ling held the bronze scripture in his hand and smiled. My good disciple, you don't have to do this. I nurtured you for my own sake, just like how I once nurtured Yuan Mo. However, he disappointed me too much and in the end, his spirit was destroyed. As for you, I really don't want you to follow in his footsteps. Rumble. Immortal light filled the sky. The sea of blood surged and billions of souls wailed. The soul-subduing banner expanded in the wind until it was 100,000 feet long and stretched across the sky above the sea of blood. Yi Xian stood in the sky. The mournful blood-colored immortal light illuminated the entire battlefield. He said in a calm and cold voice, Yuan Ling, from now on, you and I have no more feelings for each other. Today, only one of us can leave here alive. Ha! All of a sudden, Yuan Ling laughed out loud. However, his eyes became even more strange. My good disciple, do you really think that you can escape from my control after becoming an immortal and creating the soul-subduing banner? Or is it because you obtained the forbidden chapter of the immortal scripture and the heaven-vanquishing halberd recognized you as its master that you think you can kill me here? Buzz! The bronze scripture bloomed with immortal light. What kind of light was this? Blood-colored light lingered, demonic light surged, and immortal chi grew. When these three lights bloomed on the bronze scripture, Yuan Ling slowly walked towards Yi Xian with the scripture in his hand. My disciple, let me tell you, although the heaven-vanquishing halberd is the greatest weapon of all time, with your current cultivation, you can't even use 10% of its power. However, the immortal scripture in my hands is a product of chaos. You have just become an immortal, how can you fight against me? Yi Xian didn't waver at all because of Yuan Ling's words. Instead, he raised his energy to the peak because he knew that he was about to face an unimaginable enemy. Yi Xian said coldly, Yuan Ling, you once taught me that heaven and earth rotate and all living things wither. When facing an enemy, I shouldn't waste my breath. Killing them is the best solution. Good, good, good. Today, let me see if my good disciple can surpass his master. Immortal subduing art. The origin spirit laughed loudly. When he struck out with his palm and finger, the bronze immortal sutra rippled out. The three-colored immortal light was resplendent and humming as it charged towards Yi Xian with an unfathomable force. Die! The sea of blood in the sky exploded. Yi Xian formed seals with both hands, and the billions of soul-suppressing banners swayed in the sky. The souls that filled the sky surged out, and the shrill howls that tore through space caused one's soul to feel as if it was about to shatter. Bang! 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 The soul-subduing banner and the bronze scripture. When the two terrifying weapons collided, the entire Blood Sea battlefield trembled violently. Heaven and earth exploded in all directions, as if it would collapse at any time. Buzz! The soul-subduing banner's light dimmed. Countless souls wailed. Under the tricolored immortal scripture's light, a large number of souls were annihilated. The entire Blood Sea battlefield was collapsing inch by inch and showed signs of spreading to the outside world. Freeze! Yi Xian formed a hand seal and fixed the soul-subduing banner in the void. However, the bronze scripture had a great origin and had a suppressive effect on the soul-subduing banner. The soul-subduing banner was not weak. After all, this forbidden weapon could help Yi Xian withstand the immortal tribulation of the 9 heavens. It was enough to prove the weapon's power. However, the bronze scripture was too terrifying. The soul-subduing banner was obviously at a disadvantage when clashing with this kind of spiritual treasure. Although the situation was not optimistic, Yi Xian was not afraid of Yuan Ling. After all, he had the forbidden chapter and he had a great understanding of the bronze scripture in Yuan Ling's hands. It was still unknown who would win. What worried Yi Xian was that he had become an immortal in the mortal world. The power of an immortal was too terrifying. If he unleashed his full strength, not only would the Blood Sea battlefield collapse, but the outside world would also be affected. Since Yuan Ling dared to fight him, his cultivation must be strong. When the two of them really fought, the mortal world would be destroyed. In the mortal world, his family and subordinates were there. How could Yi Xian let this happen? Banner, come! A trace of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. He waved his hand in the air, and the myriad soul-suppressing banner transformed into a 3-meter-long banner that was held in his hand. He waved the banner and opened the bronze immortal scripture. His entire body transformed into a ray of immortal light that shot towards the depths of the Blood Sea battlefield. Disciple, you can't escape. With the bronze immortal sutra in hand, Yuan Ling took a step forward and chased after Yi Xian. However, when Yuan Ling's eyes opened and closed, an uncontrollable excitement flashed through his eyes as he looked at Yi Xian. Chapter 233. Everything was going according to his plan. As long as Yi Xian opened the heavenly gate in the depths of the Blood Sea, his most important step would be achieved. Great Demonic Fist. Immortal Slaying Technique. The space was shattered and the void was annihilated. The two of them chased and attacked each other all the way. All kinds of immortal spells and secret killing techniques were used, causing the Blood Sea battlefield to shake violently and show signs of collapsing. Bang! The soul-subduing banner collided with the bronze immortal sutra and turned everything within 10,000 miles into dust. Yi Xian punched Yuan Ling and forced him to retreat 10,000 feet. Yuan Ling smiled ferociously and slapped Yi Xian's chest, causing the immortal light around Yi Xian to shatter without a trace. However, when the two of them attacked each other, they deliberately restrained their strength and did not dare to use their full strength. Yi Xian restrained his cultivation because he was afraid that the collapse of the Blood Sea battlefield would affect the human realm outside. Although Yuan Ling did not care about the human realm, Yi Xian had not opened the heavenly gate. His ultimate goal had not been achieved. Naturally, he did not want the Blood Sea battlefield to collapse and attract the attention of the Earth immortal realm. The two of them had different thoughts, but they had the same idea. This battle was very restrained. When the two of them chased each other into the depths of the Blood Sea, a heavenly gate appeared in front of them. My good disciple, behind this heavenly gate is a passage that goes against the flow. It leads directly to the Earth immortal realm, Yuan Ling said coldly. His palm and fingers brought about a sky full of immortal light and instantly annihilated Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner and annihilated the immortal light. The two of them stood opposite each other in the air, both of them standing under the heavenly gate. Yuan Ling, you've always wanted me to open this door. I'm afraid there's something extremely important to you inside, right? Yi Xian said strangely. Since the two of them had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Yuan Ling had nothing to hide. He was surrounded by tricolored celestial light. His voice was cold and emotionless as he said, Yi Xian, you should know that you and I have yet to use our full strength. If we really fight to the death, not only will the Blood Sea battlefield collapse, the mortal world will also be destroyed. Only by pushing open this door and entering the reverse passage can you and I fight to the extreme. Yi Daoyu, you mustn't. Ancestor Blood River suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian, his face deathly pale to the extreme. Yi Dao Yu, although behind this heavenly gate is a passage that goes against the flow, Yuan Mo's corpse is there. Although Yuan Mo's soul has been destroyed, his physical body still has the cultivation of a grand unity Xian Immortal. If you let Yuan Ling merge with this body, you will not be his opponent at all. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, Yuan Ling wants to use Yuan Mo's cultivation of a grand unity Xian Immortal to destroy your soul and then take over your body. In this way, he will be able to control the heaven-destroying halberd and obtain the forbidden chapter that you have comprehended. He will then be able to plot against the chessboard of heaven and earth that he has set up. Patriarch Blood River roared loudly, his body trembling at this moment. Yuan Ling's aura was sinister. Clearly, Patriarch Blood River's words had caused his mind to be in a mess. Blood River, you are courting death. The essence spirit was no longer calm as a blood-colored immortal bead appeared in his hand. Without waiting for Patriarch Blood River to react, the essence spirit crushed the bead as a shrill scream sounded from Patriarch Blood River's mouth. It caused his body to crack in an extremely terrifying manner. Yuan Ling, you have enslaved me for 10,000 years. Even if my soul is destroyed today, I will make your plan go down the drain. Patriarch Blood Sea roared angrily as a sanguine beam appeared in his hand. Then, he suddenly struck at Yi Xian. His sorrowful and indignant voice sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Yi Dao Yu, this is the Nether River diagram that was passed down to me by my master. If you were to enter the Earth Immortal world one day, use this item to seek out Patriarch Nether River. He will definitely know the cause and effect and seek revenge for me. And as a form of repayment to you, this Nether River diagram contains a huge opportunity. If you are able to reveal this secret, you will be able to enter the Daoyuo Jingxian. Patriarch Blood River's voice turned weaker until his body vanished without a trace. He was already dead. The sanguine beam was cold to the touch. Yi Xian did not have the time to look at what it was in his hand. He stored it in his Meru space and faced off with Yuan Ling once again. That darn bastard! Yuan Ling said sinisterly. He never expected that a cowardly person like Patriarch Blood River would create complications. It had already disrupted some of his plans. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was cold and sinister. His eyes were slightly frozen because there were only two choices in front of him. He could either push open the heavenly gate and enter the reverse passage to fight Yuan Ling to the death. Or he could withdraw from the Blood Sea battlefield and stay in the mortal world. Yuan Ling would also guard this place to the death. The two of them would have to face off against each other for eternity. If he could choose, Yi Xian would choose the first option. However, the first option was extremely dangerous. He had just become an immortal and his cultivation level should be at the celestial immortal stage. The reverse passage contained the body of Yuan Mo, who was a primordial unity Xian immortal. If Yuan Ling succeeded in seizing the body, how could he be a match for the primordial unity Xian immortal Yuan Ling with his cultivation level of a celestial immortal? The immortal realm was divided into celestial immortal, Xian immortal, genuine immortal, golden immortal, primordial unity Xian immortal. Yi Xian was 4 whole realms away from the primordial unity Xian immortal. This was a predicament with no chance of survival. At this moment, Yi Xian was deep in thought. Yuan Ling's breathing was also chaotic. The two of them were in a stalemate. Yuan Ling was very worried. He was worried that Yi Xian would retreat and then his plan would really go down the drain. Yi Xian's thoughts were in a mess and he did not know what to do. Yi Xian was very confident that if he released his cultivation level of a celestial immortal, with the help of the forbidden chapter and the heaven-destroying halberd, he would definitely be able to kill Yuan Ling. However, Yuan Ling would definitely not sit and wait for death. He would definitely fight with his life on the line. When the two of them fought with all their might, the Blood Sea battlefield would definitely collapse and the mortal world would be destroyed. This was definitely not an outcome that Yi Xian wanted to see. Perhaps Yuan Ling had a premonition. When he saw Yi Xian's uncertain expression, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. The tricolored celestial light around him suddenly surged and caused the entire Blood Sea battlefield to collapse violently. Yi Xian, you can't leave. If you don't open this door, then you and I will fight in the mortal world. At most, it will end in a life and death struggle. Rumble. The Blood Sea evaporated and the ground collapsed. Heaven and earth exploded violently in all directions. The sky outside was faintly discernible. Obviously, Yuan Ling saw through Yi Xian's scruples and wanted to force him to open the heavenly gate. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was sinister. He had already understood the cause and effect. Yuan Ling groomed him for the heaven-destroying halberd and the forbidden chapter. Obviously, after a long time, no one had been able to make the heaven-destroying halberd recognize him as its master, let alone obtain the forbidden chapter of the immortal scripture. Although Yi Xian did not know who Yuan Ling's real body was and what he wanted to do with the heaven-destroying halberd and the forbidden chapter, the other party's goal was as clear as day. It was to take over Yuan Ling's body, and this was also the most important step for Yuan Ling. Chapter 234. Bang! 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 While Yi Xian was hesitating, the Blood Sea battlefield completely collapsed. The two of them, along with the heavenly gate, appeared in the broken intestine mountain. However, in just a few breaths of time, as the origin spirit crazily circulated its cultivation, the broken intestine mountain also collapsed and spread out towards the outside world. Yi Xian had no choice but to make a decision at this critical moment. Otherwise, the two of them would definitely destroy the world if they fought in the mortal world. Yuan Ling, do you think you can kill my divine soul by entering the passage in reverse and controlling the body of the primordial demon? Yi Xian's face was sinister and a trace of killing intent flashed across his eyes. An extremely bold idea appeared in his mind. However, Yi Xian was not sure if this idea would come true. However, he had no choice but to gamble this time. If he won, he would not take Yuan Ling's threat seriously at all. Open! Yi Xian's palms violently struck out, fiercely smashing onto the heavenly gate. The mournful blood-colored immortal light caused the heavenly gate to rumble, and the ancient gate that had been sealed for eternity slowly opened. Chi! Without any hesitation, Yi Xian turned into a blood-colored immortal light and directly entered the heavenly gate. Yuan Ling, who saw this scene, laughed hysterically. He held the Immortal Sutra and chased after Yi Xian crazily. The passage in reverse. There was nothing in all directions. There was no alternation between the sun and the moon, nor was there any concept of time. Apart from the boundless gray space, there was only the whistling of the nine heavens' astral wind that could transform one's divine soul and cut one's flesh. Buzz! Yi Xian seemed to have turned into a blood-colored sun and appeared in the passage in reverse. The immortal light around him was blazing like heavenly fire and even burned the surrounding void. It was an extremely terrifying scene. Yuan Ling followed closely behind and chased after Yi Xian. He violently smashed an immortal technique at him. You are courting death. Yi Xian grinned ferociously. He formed a hand seal and unleashed a powerful immortal technique. Not only did it nullify Yuan Ling's attack, but it also sent Yuan Ling flying tens of thousands of miles away, causing the tricolored immortal light around Yuan Ling to dim even further. Yuan Ling, today I will destroy your divine soul so that you will never be reincarnated. Entering the retrograde passage, this place was boundless. It was unknown how many times bigger it was than the mortal realm. Yi Xian could also completely release the cultivation of a celestial immortal, while Yuan Ling was just a remnant soul. Even though he had the protection of the tricolored celestial light, how could he be Yi Xian's opponent? Bang! The void exploded. Before Yuan Ling could stabilize himself, Yi Xian took a step forward and suddenly appeared in front of Yuan Ling. When his palm and fingers transformed, a terrifying immortal art violently blasted toward Yuan Ling. Bang! 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 Immortal light split the sky and destroyed the heavens and the earth. Yi Xian didn't hold back any longer, and his celestial immortal cultivation was raised to the extreme. Every time he blasted out an immortal spell, his origin spirit's body would explode, and his entire body would be in a sorry state as he was barely able to resist Yi Xian's attacks. Yi Xian, it's still too early for you to kill me. Facing Yi Xian's attacks, Yuan Ling roared loudly. He fled in the retrograde passage in a sorry state. Yi Xian chased after him violently, causing rumbling sounds to come from the retrograde passage. There was no concept of time in the retrograde passage. Yi Xian was completely deranged. He finally released his cultivation of a celestial immortal. The two of them fought in the retrograde passage, one chasing and the other fleeing. The aura of the original spirit became weaker and weaker, but it was still running for its life. Sometimes, it wouldn't be able to withstand Yi Xian's killing techniques, so it would directly activate the bronze immortal scripture and flee in a sorry state once again. It could be months or years. Yi Xian did not know how much time had passed. In this crazy pursuit, Yi Xian's expression turned increasingly sinister. This was because he was shocked to discover a fact. There was no spiritual energy in the retrograde passage, much less any blood qi for him to devour. Every time he used an immortal technique, a portion of the blood and qi in his body would be consumed. If this went on for a long time, not only would he not be able to kill the primordial spirit, he would also die from the exhaustion of his blood and qi. Of course, in Yi Xian's endless pursuit, Yuan Ling was in an even more miserable state. The tricolored immortal light no longer existed. If not for the bronze immortal sutra barely withstanding Yi Xian's attacks, his soul would have long been destroyed by Yi Xian. Ha! All of a sudden, Yuan Ling laughed maniacally. He was no longer fleeing. Instead, he turned around and looked at Yi Xian maliciously. This also stunned Yi Xian. His pupils constricted because he saw something he did not want to see. In the retrograde passage, in the void. A corpse floated in the void. Terrifying immortal light rippled around the corpse, and the elemental spirit stared fixedly at Yi Xian. His entire body turned into a ray of black light that quickly merged into the corpse. Something terrifying happened. Rumble. The sky-splitting immortal light shot in all directions. The corpse stood up, and the immortal light around it caused the retrograde passage to become unstable. The surrounding space also shattered and healed. Primordial demon body. Yi Xian bellowed maliciously. Just one look was enough to make his soul palpitate. A deep sense of helplessness pressed down on Yi Xian's mind. The power of a grand unity mystic immortal was released. It was as if the mountains and rivers were pressing down on him. This was what Yi Xian felt at this moment. Yuan Ling fled pathetically. It seemed like he was avoiding Yi Xian's pursuit, but wasn't he looking for the primordial demon body? Finally, after enduring Yi Xian's endless pursuit, he finally found the primordial demon body. He did not hesitate to possess it. Yi Xian, after I destroy your soul, I will be able to control the heaven-destroying halberd and obtain the forbidden chapter. You can die now. Yuan Ling roared savagely. When he raised his palm and fingers, the surrounding space shattered. It was as if he was going to destroy Yi Xian's soul in the next moment. Run! There was no nonsense, and he did not want to lose face. Facing Yuan Ling, who was a grand unity mystic immortal, if Yi Xian were to fight him, he would scold himself for being an idiot. Buzz! He took a step forward, and a ray of light flew away. Yi Xian's face was gloomy, and there was a mournful look in his eyes. He fled into the depths of the retrograde passage as if his life depended on it. He did not want to fight to the death with Yuan Ling. You can't escape. Yuan Ling took a step forward, and the immortal light around him filled the sky. He appeared behind Yi Xian in an instant. When he reached out his palm, it was as if heaven and earth were turning upside down. This was enough to prove how terrifying a grand unity mystic immortal was. primordial spirit void. Yi Xian roared. His body suddenly turned illusory, and in an instant, he merged into the void and disappeared before Yuanling's eyes. What a forbidden secret technique! Yuanling roared savagely, and the immortal light around him went berserk. He looked around maliciously. Obviously, in the face of Yi Xian's forbidden secret technique, even though he was 4 realms higher than Yi Xian, he could not find his real body. At this moment, Yi Xian escaped into the void, and he did not dare to move. The immortal light around him was restrained to the extreme. He looked at Yuanling through the void, and there was a gloomy murderous look in his eyes. The plot had reversed. Yi Xian was chasing Yuanling crazily just now, but now he could only escape into the void to avoid Yuanling's pursuit. This made him feel very helpless, but there was nothing he could do. However, Yi Xian had expected this outcome. Otherwise, he would not have dared to enter the retrograde passage and fight Yuanling to the death. Chapter 235. Yi Xian naturally had a trump card. This trump card was not the heaven-destroying halberd or the forbidden manual. After all, no matter how strong the forbidden manual was, it could not allow Yi Xian to cross 4 realms to kill Yuanling. Even though he could use the heaven-destroying halberd, he could only use less than 10% of its power. If he could not kill Yuanling in one blow, he would exhaust his blood qi and sink into the reverse passage forever. Yi Xian was actually betting on himself, a secret about becoming an immortal. He had become an immortal in the Mahayana stage and had experienced the 3 questions of heaven and earth. It was impossible for him to only be a divine immortal. According to Yi Xian's guess, his divine immortal cultivation was related to the world he was in. After all, there was no spiritual qi in the human world. At most, he could only reach the divine immortal stage. This was also the maximum power that the human world could withstand. Only by entering the earthly immortal realm, where the laws of heaven and earth were complete, his cultivation would increase tremendously. As for how much his cultivation would increase, Yi Xian was not sure. However, he had a premonition. This premonition was very strong, and that was that as long as he entered the earth immortal realm, the so-called heavenly immortal would definitely not be his end. Even if his elemental spirit was a grand unity Xian immortal, it might not be able to threaten him. Moreover, it was very likely that Yi Xian would kill him instead, causing his elemental spirit to be completely annihilated and never be able to reincarnate. Moreover, Yi Xian had a foolproof plan. During the ancient war 10,000 years ago, Yuan Mo had killed many immortals. It was already a disaster for the earthly immortal realm. As long as he entered the earthly immortal realm and spread the word, all the immortals and immortals would know that Yuan Mo was still alive. Under the encirclement of all the immortals and immortals, and with his help, he would definitely be able to kill Yuanling. However, the only thing Yi Xian needed to do right now was to find the entrance to the earth immortal realm in the reverse direction. During this period of time, he definitely couldn't let his origin spirit discover him, or else he would definitely die miserably at his opponent's hands. With his primordial spirit in the void, Yi Xian did not dare to use any celestial spells. He used his physical body to traverse the void and slowly walked towards the depths of the passage. This was because he believed that the end of the passage would lead him to the legendary earth immortal realm. Yi Xian, you little bastard. There's no spiritual energy here, nor is there any blood energy for you to devour. Let's see where you can hide once your cultivation is exhausted. Yuanling roared in the void. The tiny immortal light shattered in all directions, but he could not find any trace of Yi Xian. This made him extremely furious. Wang! Yuanling took a step forward and also walked towards the depths of the passage. He was not stupid. He knew that Yi Xian had no way to escape. If he returned to the human realm, he would only be courting death. Even the human realm would be destroyed. Therefore, Yuanling was extremely sure that Yi Xian could only go to the earth immortal realm. At the end of the passage, A door of celestial light stood there, shining brightly. However, a large number of celestial runes were inscribed on the door. Obviously, the door to the Earth Immortal realm had been sealed by the Immortals and Immortals 10,000 years ago. This was also the reason why the human realm had become the end of the world. At this moment, Yuan Ling stood in front of the door. He looked around the entire passage, hoping to find Yi Xian. However, to his disappointment, Yi Xian's primordial spirit was too unpredictable. Even though he was a Tai mystic immortal, he could not find any trace of Yi Xian. In the void, Yi Xian sat cross-legged and stared at Yuan Ling. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a sinister look in them. The door to the Earth Immortal realm had already been blocked by the origin spirit. Moreover, Yi Xian could feel that the door had already been sealed. Even without the origin spirit by his side, he wouldn't be able to break the seal on the door with his mere heavenly immortal cultivation. What should he do? Two big problems appeared in front of Yi Xian. He had to avoid Yuan Ling's pursuit and break the door to the Earth Immortal realm. He could not do either one now. Time passed little by little. It could be a day or a year. Yi Xian was immersed in thinking, hoping to find a solution. Suddenly, a light flashed across Yi Xian's mind, waking him up from his contemplation. That's right. He was indeed no match for Yuan Ling and could not break the door to the Earth Immortal realm. However, Yuan Ling was a Tai mystic immortal. With his cultivation, he could definitely break the seal. However, Yi Xian also knew that Yuan Ling was not stupid. How could he break the seal on the door? Yi Xian was a person who was good at thinking, and he was also a decisive person. When he could not solve the problem by force, he could only use his wisdom to solve the problem in front of him. After an unknown period of time, countless ideas formed in Yi Xian's mind. However, he rejected them one by one because the chances of success were too small. That's the only way. Yi Xian woke up from his contemplation. A crazy look flashed across his eyes. A solution that only had a 50% chance of success appeared in his mind. This solution was simple but also the most practical. Since Yuan Ling had been plotting against him for so long, he himself was the best bait. As long as he appeared in front of Yuan Ling, he would definitely kill him at all costs. As long as he seized the fleeting opportunity, he had a 50% chance of breaking the seal on the door with Yuan Ling's help. As long as he entered the Earth Immortal realm, under the perfect laws of heaven and earth, and nourished by the abundant spiritual qi, his potential after crossing the tribulation to become an immortal would be completely unleashed. Yi Xian was very sure that he had crossed the 9 heavens immortal tribulations at the Mahayana stage. He had also crossed the 3 questions of heaven and earth, which had never been crossed by a devil cultivator. He was definitely not just a celestial immortal. Yi Xian had a strong premonition that even if Yuan Ling was a Tai mystic immortal now, he would not be afraid and would most likely kill him. Fight to the death. Yi Xian had no way out. Between him and Yuan Ling, it was either you die or I die. There was absolutely no possibility of reconciliation. This also led Yi Xian to make a decision. Buzz! The void rippled and the immortal light blazed. When Yi Xian walked out of the void and looked calmly at Yuan Ling's face turned ferocious. The way he looked at Yi Xian was filled with cruelty and violence. Yi Xian, you finally came out. Yuan Ling said ferociously. The Tai immortal light became more and more intense, as if he was going to attack Yi Xian in the next moment. Yuan Ling, only one of us can live today. The one who strikes first gains the advantage. Before Yuan Ling could make a move, Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner. The sky was filled with dead souls that roared and rushed madly toward Yuan Ling. You're really not afraid of death. Yuan Ling smiled cruelly. The Tai immortal light annihilated everything. Under the illumination of the Tai immortal light, the dead souls turned into black smoke amidst shrill screams. However, Yi Xian did not want to fight with Yuan Ling at all. His whole body turned into a blood-red immortal light and shot violently toward the door of immortal light. You want to escape to the earth immortal realm? You're really delusional. Yuan Ling smiled cruelly. When he stretched out his palm, the tiny immortal light turned into a giant palm that covered the sky and slammed toward Yi Xian with unimaginable power. Chapter 236. Bang! The giant palm formed by the tiny immortal light was too terrifying. Yi Xian staggered from the impact and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth uncontrollably. However, Yi Xian also made use of this force to escape towards the door of immortal light. My good disciple, the door to the reverse passage has already been sealed. You can't escape to the earth immortal realm. Yuan Ling was as pleased as a cat playing with a mouse. He casually struck out with his tiny immortal light, causing Yi Xian to tumble a few times. Pfft! Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood essence. He wiped the corner of his mouth and ignored the attacks coming from behind him. He channeled all of his cultivation and continuously approached the door of immortal light. Although he was constantly enduring Yuan Ling's terrifying attacks, Yi Xian knew that he wouldn't die yet. Yuan Ling was after his physical body. If his physical body was destroyed, Yuan Ling would lose more than he gained. From Yuan Ling's attacks, it could be seen how terrifying the tiny immortal light was. If Yuan Ling really wanted to kill Yi Xian wouldn't even have a chance to resist. He would have already died in Yuan Ling's hands. Yi Xian had also calculated this point. He had already given up on resisting. His only goal was to get close to the door of immortal light. This was also his only chance. Finally, Yi Xian stood in front of the door of immortal light. Through the door, he could already see the outline of the earth immortal realm. A look of excitement flashed across his eyes. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian had nowhere to run. He was already in a desperate situation. Yuan Ling followed closely behind and completely blocked his original path. He was looking at him with a sinister smile. Yuan Ling walked slowly towards Yi Xian with a gentle smile on his face. He kept persuading Yi Xian, my good disciple. I've nurtured you for so many years. It's time for you to repay me. Give up resisting. I can promise you that as long as you give me your physical body, I can help you reincarnate. At that time, I'll accept you as my disciple. You can also stand proudly in the mortal world. Yuan Ling, do you mean what you say? Yi Xian bit his lips and asked with a slightly red face. Looking at Yi Xian's slightly moved appearance, Yuan Ling sighed and said, Disciple, after all, you and I have been master and disciple for many years. Although I have bad intentions, the master-disciple relationship between you and me is not fake. As the two of them talked, Yuan Ling gradually approached Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked hesitant, as if he was really considering Yuan Ling's promise. However, his hands moved slightly and an obscure celestial art gradually formed. Disciple, give up resisting. As Yuan Ling's words fell, the distance between the two of them was only 10 feet. Yuan Ling also raised his hands slightly and a trace of cruel killing intent quietly flashed in his eyes. Soul Destruction Guide. Heaven and Earth Shift. Suddenly, the two of them attacked almost at the same time with extremely sinister expressions on their faces. Obviously, the two of them were feigning civility and were just trying to deceive each other. There was no master-disciple relationship. Little bastard, I knew you wouldn't be so honest. Old dog, aren't you the same? As the two of them roared furiously, Yuan Ling slapped his palm towards Yi Xian's forehead. Obviously, he wanted to mince Yi Xian's soul. On the other hand, Yi Xian's palm suddenly blasted towards Yuan Ling while a trace of madness flashed in his eyes. Little bastard, I'll annihilate your soul today. Bang! Yuan Ling's palm blasted onto Yi Xian's forehead. Yi Xian didn't dodge at all, but his palm also blasted onto Yuan Ling's chest at this moment. The void was silent, deathly silent. Time seemed to have stopped and space seemed to have frozen. When this strange scene appeared in the void, only 3 breaths of time had passed, and Yuan Ling was laughing wildly. "Little bastard, I'll annihilate your soul today and take over your body. When I appear once more in the earthly immortal dimension, then I'll be able to truly start the game of the heavens and the earth." Yuan Ling spoke in a tyrannical voice while his expression was extremely excited. He pressed his palm down between Yi Xian's brows while utilizing the extremely terrifying soul destruction technique. Obviously, he wanted to crush Yi Xian's soul core. Yi Xian's hair was disheveled while his expression was savage and venomous, and he even revealed an expression of extreme pain. Obviously, his soul core was collapsing inch by inch, and it wouldn't be long before his soul would be obliterated. "Old dog, you're too naive." Suddenly, Yi Xian laughed wildly while his handsome face warped. His palm that was pressed against Yuan Ling's chest was emanating an extremely terrifying immortal glow. "Reverse the universe, replace the tree with the flower." Yi Xian roared ferociously because this moment would determine whether he would be able to overcome this predicament of certain death. Buzz! The heavens and the earth seemed to be hanging upside down as a strange and unpredictable aura bloomed around Yi Xian's body. Yuan Ling was shocked by what happened next. Yi Xian's palm that was pressed against Yuan Ling's chest was constantly bulging, and the terrifying blue veins were wriggling on his arm like earthworms. Terrifying Tai immortal light surged out of Yuan Ling's body and flowed along Yi Xian's bulging arm into his body. "Little bastard, do you have a death wish?" Yuan Ling screamed in horror. Although the Tai immortal light in his body was drawn out by Yi Xian, he wasn't too shocked. What really surprised him was that Yi Xian was absorbing the Tai immortal light into his body like a madman. This was simply an act of suicide. At this moment, Yi Xian was suffering unimaginable pain. His primordial spirit between his eyebrows was cracking inch by inch. This was caused by Yuan Ling's soul annihilation seed. As he absorbed the Tai immortal light from Yuan Ling's body into his body was breaking apart, and a large amount of blood had already soaked his entire body. Pain. Not only did it come from his primordial spirit, but it also came from his body. This heart-wrenching pain made Yi Xian feel like he was better off dead than alive. However, Yi Xian knew that whether he would be able to overcome this predicament of certain death depended on this moment. "Break for me." Yi Xian was bathed in blood as he roared crazily. The blood-red immortal light covered him, and he turned into a carrier that connected Yuan Ling to the immortal gate. The terrifying Tai immortal light was breaking apart his body, but it was also violently tearing the door to the earth immortal realm through his body. "You damned little bastard!" In an instant, Yuan Ling shouted angrily. He had already understood everything. It turned out that Yi Xian was risking his life to borrow his power to break the seal on the door. However, it was too late for Yuan Ling to stop him. The immortal text on the door was breaking apart inch by inch under the Tai immortal light. With a loud bang, the door that had been sealed for 10,000 years finally exploded. An overwhelming amount of spiritual qi also poured into the passage. "Now's the time!" Yi Xian roared. While Yuan Ling was still in a daze, Yi Xian's eyes were filled with malice. He suddenly slammed his palm on Yuan Ling's chest, and his entire body crazily crossed the passage and entered the earth immortal realm. "You damned little bastard!" Yuan Ling roared as he watched Yi Xian enter the earth immortal realm. He was so angry that his body was on the verge of exploding. He stared at Yi Xian's back as hesitation flashed across his eyes. "If I enter the earth immortal realm, with the body of primordial demon that I am occupying now, I will definitely alarm the immortals and gods. However, if I let this little bastard go, I'm afraid that I won't have the chance to destroy his primordial spirit." Yuan Ling murmured coldly. It was obvious that he did not know what to do. Chapter 237. This won't do. This boy's talent is too terrifying. If I let him escape today, it will be even more difficult to seize his body when his cultivation increases greatly in the future. Yuan Ling's eyes were cold. He had already made up his mind. He would rather attract the attention of the Earth Immortal Realm than let Yi Xian go today. Boom! Yuan Ling took a step forward and turned into a beam of immortal light, entering the Earth Immortal Realm. He chased after Yi Xian violently. Obviously, if he did not destroy Yi Xian's divine soul today, wouldn't his 10,000 years of waiting be in vain? An unimaginable amount of spiritual qi rushed toward him. Yi Xian took a deep breath and immediately felt refreshed. Even the blood and qi in his body were boiling violently at this moment. Before Yi Xian could observe his surroundings, he heard an explosion behind him. A beam of immortal light covered the sky and struck down. Yuan Ling had actually followed him out of the retrograde passage. He was chasing after Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. Run! Yi Xian didn't dare to hesitate in the slightest. He violently circulated the undying immortal scripture as he absorbed the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He used the cloud riding technique, and a black cloud appeared beneath his feet as he fled into the distance in a panic. Little bastard, let's see where you can run to. Yuan Ling had already thrown caution to the wind. The Taiyi immortal light shone in all directions. He also used the cloud riding technique, but he was 100 times faster than Yi Xian. In a flash, he blocked Yi Xian's path. Yuan Ling, do you really think that Lao Tzu is afraid of you? After entering the Earth Immortal Realm, Yi Xian could feel that his body and cultivation were improving at an extremely terrifying speed. The endless spiritual qi was surging into his body uncontrollably. Yi Xian's face was filled with ecstasy, but his heart was heavy to the extreme. He knew that he'd made the right bet. After entering the Earth Immortal Realm, his potential to become an immortal was erupting. However, he needed time to raise his cultivation. Crack! A sound like a flood breaking through a dam came from Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian's cultivation base had actually advanced to the Xian Immortal Realm in just a few dozen breaths of time. This also caused his cracked body to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! How could Yuan Ling not see the change in Yi Xian's cultivation base? His expression changed drastically. With a wave of his sleeve, a large amount of primordial immortal light blasted towards Yi Xian. Bang! Tens of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were turned into dust by a single attack from the origin spirit. Yi Xian was also sent flying tens of thousands of miles away by this attack, and he was in an even more sorry state as he fled into the distance. Although Yi Xian had stepped into the Xian Immortal Realm, he was still no match for Yuan Ling, who was a primordial immortal. Now he could only flee with all his might. Yi Xian should feel lucky. If not for Yuan Ling not wanting to hurt his body, Yi Xian would have died in Yuan Ling's hands. How could Yuan Ling give him a chance to escape? Rumble. The mountains and rivers shattered, and the heavenly clouds roiled. The two of them chased and fled, releasing terrifying immortal light that rippled in all directions. As for Yi Xian, in the midst of his endless escape, both his body and cultivation were increasing at an inconceivable speed. A month later, Yi Xian stepped into the Golden Immortal Realm and could already dodge Yuan Ling's primordial immortal light. 3 months later, Yi Xian stepped into the true immortal realm. Although he was still fleeing crazily, he would occasionally cast a few immortal techniques at Yuan Ling, catching Yuan Ling by surprise. Another half a year passed. In the endless pursuit, Yuan Ling finally discovered an extremely unacceptable fact. The fact was that Yi Xian's cultivation base was increasing rapidly. If he broke through to the primordial immortal realm, not to mention whether he could shatter Yi Xian's primordial spirit, he might even be defeated by Yi Xian. Why? Why? He has just become an immortal. How can he cross 3 realms in a row? Yuan Ling kept muttering to himself in shock as he chased after Yi Xian. He really couldn't figure out the key point. In fact, Yuan Ling had already sunk into paranoia. If he could calm down, he should have discovered that Yi Xian was a Mahayana realm cultivator. He had also experienced the 3 questions of heaven and earth and cultivated the immortal scripture. These were all Yi Xian's foundation. When he became an immortal in the mortal world couldn't withstand Yi Xian's power. It could only allow him to become a celestial immortal. But it was different now. Yi Xian had stepped into the earth immortal realm. Under the situation where the heavenly Tao was complete, there was also a sky full of spiritual qi for him to absorb. The potential of becoming an immortal that had been suppressed in his body had completely erupted in the earth immortal realm. No, if this goes on, not to mention whether I can occupy his body, I might even die in the hands of this little bastard. Yuan Ling murmured coldly. He had already discovered the seriousness of the matter. Little bastard, even if I can't get your body, I will destroy you today. Yuan Ling finally had the thought of destroying both the jade and the stone. Since he couldn't get Yi Xian, he would destroy Yi Xian. At most, he would wait for an endless amount of time. He definitely couldn't let Yi Xian live. Rumble. The cultivation of a Tai Xian immortal finally erupted. Yuan Ling didn't hold back anymore. He activated the immortal killing technique and drove the spiritual qi in the sky for millions of miles. It turned into a Tai immortal light that covered the sky and violently attacked Yi Xian. Ha! All of a sudden, Yi Xian's escaping figure stopped. He turned around and looked at Yuan Ling ferociously. His whole body was glowing. It was a type of immortal light that had never been seen before. This type of immortal light was called the Tai immortal light. Break for me. It was as if the immortal thunder from the 9 heavens was exploding. It was as if the luminous star river was shaking. A loud explosion came from Yi Xian's body. The shackles in his body were broken and he directly broke into the Tai Xian immortal realm. Soul-subduing banner. Yi Xian held the soul-subduing banner in his hand. He was wrapped in Tai immortal light. When he waved the banner, the wind and clouds in this area changed. Although the soul-subduing banner didn't scream, the Tai immortal light that burst out caused the mountains and rivers in all directions to shake. Bang! 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 The endless sky suddenly shattered. The mountains and rivers in millions of miles turned into dust. When the 2 Tai Xian immortals' techniques collided, it created a scene of destruction. Damn it! Looking at Yi Xian's techniques, how could Yuan Ling not see that Yi Xian had already stepped into the Tai Xian immortal realm? This made his face distorted and his eyes turned extremely red. I'll kill you. Yuan Ling went completely berserk. He ignored everything and attacked Yi Xian with all kinds of immortal techniques. Old dog, we don't know who will kill who today. When Yi Xian stepped into the Tai Xian immortal realm, he could feel that his potential to become an immortal had been exhausted. However, it didn't matter because he was already in the same realm as Yuan Ling. He didn't have to worry about his life anymore. Immortal Transformation Art. Yi Xian attacked with a powerful immortal technique. This immortal transformation art was a secret technique in the immortal scripture. It could kill immortals and destroy gods. Its power was unimaginable. Bang! 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 The 2 of them attacked each other. Neither of them took half a step back. They fought from the sky to the ground and from the ground to the sky. Everywhere they passed, everything was annihilated. It was a terrifying scene. The Earth immortal realm was vast and boundless. It was divided into 4 continents and 4 seas. The Dongxing Divine Land, the Aparagodania continent, the Nanzanbu continent, and the Uttarakuru continent. The 4 seas were divided into the East, West, North, and South Seas. They were controlled by the dragon tribe of the 4 seas and interspersed between the 4 continents. Chapter 238. The people of Dongxing Divine Prefecture respected the heavens and the earth and worshipped Taoism. The people of Aparagodania continent were not greedy and did not kill. They worshipped Buddha wholeheartedly and respected the Western Spirit Mountain. The people of Nanjan continent were greedy and killed a lot. It was more chaotic. Taoism, Buddhism, Devil Tao cultivators, and other sects were involved in many disputes. The North Continent was a paradise for demons. Although they loved to kill, it was only because they wanted to make a living. They were clumsy and unemotional, so they did not do much. Barren mountains and unruly rivers were filled with giant beasts from the primordial age. Years after years of slaughter, it was the most chaotic continent. Most of the 4 prefectures were mountain ranges that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles. Between the mountains, there were many flat lands that stretched for millions of miles. There were also many countries that were located in the flat lands. Some of the countries were even several times larger than the human world. Above the earth immortal realm, there were 33 levels of heaven. The immortals and gods of the heavens lived there. There was also the ruler of the 3 realms who sat in the bullfighting palace to manage the 3 realms. Below the earth immortal realm, there were 18 levels of hell. The 10 kings of hell ruled over billions of souls and controlled the reincarnation of life and death. At this moment, Yi Xian and Yuan Ling were attacking each other. Every time they used a powerful immortal technique, they would destroy millions of miles of mountains. The 2 of them were also in a remote place in Dongxing Divine Continent. There were no signs of human habitation here. The vast mountains stretched for tens of millions of miles. However, the 2 of them fought until the mountains and rivers were destroyed. Wherever they passed, the people in the earth immortal realm would die. Tiandu country. The country was vast and located in the plains. It was a country established by the Wuhua sect. Under the leadership of the Wuhua sect, the mortals here worshipped Taoism. The leader of the Wuhua sect was one of the immortals and was respected as the supreme immortal Wuhua. He enjoyed the incense of his followers day and night. It could be said that he was very carefree. However, on this day, 2 beams of immortal light fought from the sky to the ground. When the Taiyi immortal light fell, more than half of Tiandu city was turned into dust. Countless mortals died tragically in the city. The 4 disciples of Supreme Immortal Wu Hua were all in the tribulation passing stage. They were cultivating in seclusion in the Dao Palace. However, when they heard the earth-shattering sound, the 4 of them opened their eyes in shock. They all rushed into the sky, thinking that demons had invaded. However, when the 4 of them saw the battle between Yi Xian and Yuan Ling in the sky, their faces turned deathly pale. Even their teeth were chattering. Which 2 immortals are so angry actually fighting in the sky above my Tiandu city? The eldest disciple of Wu Hua trembled as he spoke. Exalted immortals, please calm your anger. Please take pity on us mortals. The second disciple of the 5 flowers soared into the sky and bowed towards Yi Xian and Yuan Ling from afar. He hoped that the 2 of them would stop here. Otherwise, the entire sky capital would be destroyed by the 2 of them. At this moment, Yuan Ling had already gone berserk. His palms and fingers moved up and down as he madly brandished immortal arts, but he was still unable to take down Yi Xian. Moreover, in the past 6 months, the 2 of them had fought through thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Yi Xian's immortal arts were becoming more and more proficient and had already faintly suppressed Yuan Ling. At this moment, Yuan Ling's mood was simply furious to the extreme. Where did this ant come from? Die for me. A beam of immortal light shot out. The second disciple of Wu Hua did not even have time to scream before his spirit and soul were destroyed. This made the other 3 turn pale. They did not dare to disturb the battle between the 2 of them. Mortals below, listen up. This is Yuan Mo who caused chaos in the earth immortal realm 10,000 years ago. Why don't you quickly inform the heavenly soldiers and generals to capture this demon? Yi Xian's eyes turned and a beam of Taiyi immortal light blasted out, causing Yuan Mo to stagger and blood to flow from the corners of his mouth. However, his words fell into the ears of the other three. Yuan. Yuan Mo. The first disciple of Wu Hua screamed in horror as he stared at Yuan Ling in the sky. When he saw Yuan Ling's face, his entire body trembled silently. Quickly inform Master, that Yuan Mo is still alive. But Master is going to the Heaven Realm to participate in the Queen Mother of the West's Peach Blossom Banquet. Yuan Mo has appeared. This matter cannot be delayed. I will personally make a trip to the Heaven Realm. The first disciple of Wu Hua screamed in horror. He immediately turned into an auspicious cloud and shot toward the 33rd heaven. At this moment, the battle between Yi Xian and Yuan Mo became more and more violent. When their tiny immortal light spilled out, the heaven capital was reduced to debris. They once again fought in the sky and gradually disappeared into the distance. However, this great battle gradually attracted the attention of the beings in the Earth Immortal realm. The sun and moon alternated and the mountains and rivers collapsed. The two of them fought all the way without the slightest pause. Yuan Ling's face was as gloomy as water. He already showed signs of wanting to escape. Under the firmament, in the clouds, the two of them faced each other across the sky. Yuan Ling growled hatefully, "Little bastard, you despicable villain. Don't be delusional if you want to attract the immortals and gods to kill me. Old dog, if I don't kill you today, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart." Yi Xian laughed sinisterly. Yuan Ling firmly imprinted Yi Xian's face into his eyes. At this time, he had also completely calmed down. Since he was already helpless against Yi Xian, if he continued to be entangled with him, when the immortals and gods of the heavens arrived, he would be attacked from both front and rear. "Little bastard, I will never let you go." Without another word, Yuan Ling turned and fled into the distance. Obviously, he did not want to be entangled with Yi Xian anymore. Unfortunately, if Yuan Ling could let Yi Xian go, how could Yi Xian let him go? If he did not kill Yuan Ling, how could Yi Xian give up? This was his greatest threat. "Want to leave? Do you think you can?" Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner and the souls of the dead roared out. The tiny immortal light trapped heaven and earth as they madly attacked Yuan Ling. Damn it! In the face of Yi Xian's killing technique, Yuan Ling could only desperately resist. However, in the continuous escape, he was still hit by Yi Xian's soul-subduing banner several times. He spat out blood, but he did not dare to continue fighting with Yi Xian. He desperately fled into the distance. A cruel pursuit was in progress. Yi Xian had completely let go of himself. The tiny immortal light swept across heaven and earth. He only wanted to kill Yuan Ling. He chased from the sky to the ground, and then from the ground to the sky. Yuan Ling was completely like a stray dog running for his life. However, the shame and anger in his heart made him so angry that his chest was about to explode. There were two things to talk about. The eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect rode an auspicious cloud into the sky. As soon as he arrived at the border between the Earth Immortal Realm and the Heaven Realm, the strong wind, thunder, and fire rushed toward him. He was only in the Tribulation Realm and had not become an immortal. How could he cross the strong wind, thunder, and fire and enter the Heaven Realm? However, the eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect was not worried. He quickly took out the fire-blocking shield and covered himself in it. Then, he hurriedly stepped into the strong wind, thunder, and fire and rushed toward the Heaven Realm. Several hours later, the eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect finally arrived at the border of the Heaven Realm. As far as the eye could see, celestial clouds stretched as far as the eye could see, and celestial sounds could be heard. Countless huge islands were floating in the celestial clouds, and countless pavilions and palaces rose from the ground on the celestial islands. It was a magnificent sight. The eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect was also stunned by the beautiful scenery of the Heaven Realm. However, he came to his senses in the blink of an eye. He did not dare to delay and continued to rush toward the Heaven Palace. Chapter 239. Half an hour passed. The celestial music of the 9 heavens rang out as a 1,000-foot heavenly gate appeared in the distance. 2 golden pillars seemed to have stood there since ancient times, and a golden plaque was displayed on the 2 pillars. Celestial light rippled and auspicious chi filled the air. There were even images of red-crowned cranes and spiritual birds looming in the heavenly gate. 3 words were written on the plaque: Southern Heavenly Gate. In front of the Southern Heavenly Gate, there were 4 great divine generals standing here. Golden light shone resplendently, immortal energy overflowing into the heavens. One of them held a precious sword, one held a precious umbrella, one held a pipa, and there was even one with a flood dragon coiled around his arm. These 4 were the 4 heavenly kings who guarded the Southern Heavenly Gate. They were Eastern Heavenly King Dhritarashtra, Southern Heavenly King Xingzheng, Western Heavenly King Guangmu, and Northern Heavenly King Duowen. How dare you, mortal! You haven't become an immortal yet. How dare you barge into the heavenly realm? Eastern Heavenly King Dhritarashtra rebuked sternly. The golden light around him surged as if he would kill the 5 flower great disciples in the next moment. Looking at the Heavenly King Dhritarashtra's immortal aura, the 5 flower great disciples trembled and bowed. I am the disciple of Immortal 5 Flower. How dare I barge into the heavenly palace? It's just that primogenitor demon has appeared and destroyed our heavenly capital. I have specially come to report this. What? Primogenitor demon is still alive? How is that possible? When the 5 flower great disciples' words fell, the 4 heavenly kings were shocked and their faces turned pale. The chaos of primogenitor demon 10,000 years ago had caused many immortals and gods to fall. The 4 heavenly kings had personally experienced this battle. How could they not know how terrifying primogenitor demon was? No, if primogenitor demon is still alive, how could you have survived from him? Heavenly King Guangmu rebuked angrily. Heavenly King, you may not know this, but there was a Taoist who fought primogenitor demon and broke through thousands of miles of heaven and earth. If it wasn't for this Taoist's mysterious immortal technique that suppressed primogenitor demon wouldn't have let me go, the 5 flower great disciples reported truthfully. Hiss! The 4 heavenly kings gasped. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Primogenitor Mo was a primordial unity golden immortal back then. Even if the 4 of them attacked him together, they were no match for him. However, according to the eldest disciple of Wu Hua, this mysterious Taoist could suppress primogenitor Mo. Could this Taoist also be a primordial unity golden immortal? This is definitely not something we can decide. We should quickly report to the Jade Emperor. Come with me. Dhritarashtra did not dare to delay. He immediately rode out of the auspicious cloud and pulled the 5 magnificence grand disciples towards the heavenly palace. There were a total of 33 levels in the heavenly palace. From bottom to top, they were the Chaotic Clouds Palace, Sunflower Water Palace, 5 Thunder Palace, Bliss Palace. The Bullfighting Palace was located at the center. It was the Tao Arena of the Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the 3 realms. Below the Jade Emperor, there were 3 great emperors in the heavenly palace. Big Dipper Palace, Zhenwu Demon Sweeping Emperor, Gaochen Palace, Emperor Gaochen, Ziwei Palace, Emperor Ziwei. These 3 great emperors had been legendary for a long time. Whether it was their cultivation or identity, they were extremely noble. They seemed to be slightly inferior to the Jade Emperor, but they were not controlled by the heavenly realm. Very few people had seen these 3 great emperors. They were only in name in the heavenly realm. Dhritarashtra rode the immortal cloud and hurried towards the jade pool. Because today was the Queen Mother of the West's Peach Blossom Banquet, the Jade Emperor was personally accompanying her. There were also many immortals beside him. It could be said to be a grand banquet in the heavenly realm. Soon, Outside the Jade Pool, the immortal officials announced that Dhritarashtra and the 5 Magnificent's grand disciples quickly entered the Jade Pool. They saw the immortals standing beside the Jade Pool, looking at Dhritarashtra and the Queen Mother of the West with puzzled expressions. In the center of the Jade Pool, the Jade Emperor, the supreme of the 3 realms, was wearing a green robe. Beside him was the Queen Mother of the West. He was also looking at Dhritarashtra in confusion. He did not know why he had hurried here. Jade Emperor, something bad has happened. Primogenitor Mo has appeared. Dhritarashtra knelt down. As his words fell, the entire Jade Pool fell silent. Then, there was an uproar among the immortals. How dare you, Dhritarashtra? How dare you deceive the public with your lies? 10,000 years ago, Primogenitor Mo was severely injured and was on the verge of death. He was already suppressed in the reverse passage. We even sealed him. How could he still be alive? Zhang Tianshi stepped out and shouted angrily at Dhritarashtra. Humph. Suddenly, pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing stepped out from the crowd. He held the exquisite pagoda in his hands and bowed to the Jade Emperor. Dhritarashtra has always been careful with his words and actions. He would never deceive the public with his lies. Your Majesty, please understand. The Jade Emperor, the supreme of the 3 realms. He nodded slowly and said softly, Dhritarashtra, you said that Primogenitor Mo has appeared. Do you have any proof? Dhritarashtra did not dare to be negligent. He directly pushed out the 5 Splendor Great Disciple, who also said in a trembling voice, I am the disciple of Immortal 5 Splendor. I was cultivating in Tiandu City, hoping to become an immortal as soon as possible. But today, there was a sudden explosion in the sky. Millions of mortals in Tiandu City died tragically. My brothers and I went to check it out, but we saw Primogenitor Mo and a Taoist fighting fiercely, as the 5 Splendor Great Immortal 5 Splendor Great Immortal 5 Splendor quickly stepped out and knelt before the Jade Emperor. He said sadly, this person is indeed my disciple. He would never dare to speak nonsense. Your Majesty, please send troops to kill Primogenitor Mo. 10,000 years ago, Primogenitor Mo was a primordial unity golden immortal. Now that he has appeared again, he will definitely cause chaos in the 3 realms. But who is this Taoist? How can he be on par with him? The Jade Emperor asked doubtfully. Not only did the Jade Emperor have this question, but the immortals present also had the same question. However, before the Jade Emperor could ask again, an extremely terrifying explosion came from afar. Your Majesty, this is bad. 2 people from the lower realm are fighting to the heavenly palace. An immortal official reported in a trembling voice. However, before he could finish, an extremely terrifying scene appeared. Heavenly Realm, 33rd Heaven. Yuan Ling was bathed in blood. He violently waved the bronze Immortal Sutra in his hand, rippling with terrifying primordial unity immortal light. He fled for his life like a stray dog. Yi Xian chased Yuan Ling from the 1st heaven to the 33rd heaven with the billion-soul subduing banner in his hand. Along the way, countless palaces and pavilions were destroyed, and a large number of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals died tragically in the aftermath of their power. Primogenitor Mo, you have brought disaster to the 3 realms. Even if my soul is shattered today, I will still kill you here. In the sky above the Jade Pool, Yi Xian roared loudly. The billion-soul subduing banner danced in the sky, and the heaven-splitting immortal light made Yuan Ling stagger. His righteous voice also entered the ears of the immortals. Yi Xian, you little bastard. Yuan Ling roared in grief and indignation. He desperately resisted Yi Xian's immortal magic, but he could not say anything. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his grievances. How could Yuan Ling have come to the heavenly palace willingly? He had been driven here by Yi Xian, and there was no way for him to escape. He had only taken over Primogenitor Mo's body. Although he had the cultivation of a primordial unity mystic immortal, Yi Xian had stepped into the primordial unity mystic immortal realm and mastered all his spells. He was no longer a match for Yi Xian. They fought from the ground to the sky, and from the sky to the 33rd heaven. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers collapsed. Along the way, Yuan Ling was filled with grief and indignation, but there was nothing he could do. It really is Primogenitor Mo. An immortal official exclaimed in horror. Who exactly is this Taoist? How could he suppress Primogenitor Mo to this extent? A golden immortal asked in horror. In the blink of an eye, Primogenitor Mo fled from the sky above the jade pool. Yi Xian only hurriedly glanced at the immortals below. When he saw the Jade Emperor, his eyes narrowed slightly, and then he continued to chase after Primogenitor Mo. Everyone, who will help that Taoist subdue this demon? The Jade Emperor's face was calm, and his voice was slightly dignified. Chapter 240. The Celestial Court. It seemed that the Jade Emperor was in charge of the three realms, but the immortals were not loyal to him. Every Tao was different and had their own thoughts. There was no need to go into detail here. However, since the Jade Emperor had spoken, someone naturally had to subdue the demon. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a joke if the huge heavenly realm asked an unknown Taoist to subdue the essence demon? I'm willing to lead the 28 lunar mansions and 30,000 heavenly soldiers to subdue this demon. Pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing bowed. Alright, I'll send Lu Ding and Lu Jia under your command. You must subdue this demon. Don't let others look down on the reputation of the heavenly realm. The Jade Emperor nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The immortal cloud war drum rumbled in the hands of the golden-armored soldiers. Li Jing led the 28 lunar mansions and gathered 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. There were also Lu Ding and Lu Jia beside him. They rose a golden cloud that covered the sky and chased after Yi Xian and the essence demon. In the jade pool, immortal clouds lingered and golden light shone brightly. The Star Lord on duty took out the heavenly mirror and injected an immortal art into it. Immediately, the heavenly mirror shone brightly and reflected the scene of Yi Xian and Yuan Ling fighting in the distance. Essence demon, don't go. Yi Xian shook the soul-suppressing banner, and the void within 5,000 kilometers collapsed. It also hit Yuan Ling's back fiercely, causing Yuan Ling to go crazy with hatred. However, he did not dare to say anything and ran for his life. Fellow Taoist, Li Jing is here to help you. Golden light filled the sky and immortal clouds rolled. Amidst the rumbling of the war drums, Li Jing came over with the exquisite pagoda in his hand. The 28 lunar mansions beside him shone with immortal light, and all kinds of Dharma treasures that had never been heard of before surged out. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes turned. He waved his hand and released 100,000 feet of immortal light, trapping the world. He immediately retreated, leaving the battlefield to Li Jing and the others. Obviously, Yi Xian was not that stupid. He would really risk his life to kill Yuan Ling. Li Jing and the others would risk their lives to fight Yuan Ling. This was something that he was very happy to see. Although Li Jing was slightly stunned by Yi Xian's retreat, he did not say much. He only thought that the Taoist had already injured his vitality due to the battle with the essence devil. It was understandable for him to retreat. Set up the heavenly cycle of 28 mansions formation. The 28 lunar mansions shone brightly, and the Dharma treasures in their hands emitted thousands of auspicious auras. The starlight that fell from the sky turned into an immortal formation that covered the sky, instantly trapping Essence Demon in the center. The 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals held their golden halberds and looked at Essence Demon solemnly. Go! The exquisite pagoda flew out from Li Jing's hand, and then it expanded in the wind to become 30,000 meters in size. It carried an extremely terrifying immortal light as it descended towards Yuan Ling. At the same time, the 28 lunar mansions and the 30,000 heavenly soldiers activated the lunar mansion's grand array. The heavenly light in the sky turned into demon-destroying heavenly thunder and struck towards Yuan Ling violently. At this moment, Yuan Ling's expression was sinister, and his body was stained with blood. Faced with the overwhelming immortal light and Dharma treasures, a solemn look flashed across his eyes. He was only borrowing the body of essence demon now, and his cultivation was only at the grand unity mystic immortal level. How could he resist the killing formation set up by Li Jing and the 28 lunar mansions? Moreover, Yi Xian was eyeing him covetously from the side and looked like he was about to launch a sneak attack at any time. Yuan Ling stared at Yi Xian and saw him smiling sinisterly at him. This made him even more furious, and he even had an impulse to summon the Dharma body that he had hidden in the earth immortal world and directly kill all these ants and Yi Xian in front of him. However, Yuan Ling knew that he could not do that. If he really did so, he was afraid that the moment he killed these ants, the three pure ones Tao ancestors of the 33 heavens beyond heaven would definitely obliterate his divine soul. He simply could not bear such a price. Clang! Yuan Ling waved the bronze immortal sutra, and the grand unity immortal light shot out and directly blasted the exquisite pagoda away. This also made Li Jing's expression change, and he formed a spell with both hands, once again controlling the exquisite pagoda to attack Essence Demon. After all, Li Jing's cultivation was at the grand unity mystic immortal level, and he was in charge of the Heaven Realm army after the apotheosis. He was conferred the title of pagoda-bearing Heavenly King. At this moment, Essence Demon's cultivation was not at the grand unity golden immortal level of the past, so how could he be at a disadvantage? After all, he dared to ask for permission to fight because he could see that Essence Demon's cultivation was not at the grand unity golden immortal level of the past. Moreover, they were both grand unity mystic immortals, but the mysterious Taoist could suppress Essence Demon. How could he, the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, be inferior to that Taoist? Unfortunately, Li Jing did not know that Yi Xian was able to suppress Yuan Ling because both of them practiced the Immortal Sutra. Moreover, Yi Xian had mastered the forbidden chapter in the forbidden Dharma artifact, the billion soul suppressing banner. Naturally, he had formed a great suppression over Yuan Ling. Although Li Jing was also a grand unity mystic immortal, how could his seven-orifice exquisite pagoda compare to Yuan Ling's bronze sutra? Moreover, the Immortal Sutra was mysterious and unfathomable. If Li Jing did not have the help of the 28 mansions, he would have been defeated by Yuan Ling long ago. The 28 mansions had already seen that Li Jing was at a disadvantage in the Battle of Dharma Treasures, and they were not surprised. After all, in the distant past, whether it was Erlang Xiansheng or that lawless monkey, they had all beaten Li Jing to a pulp. Even his son, Neza, who was at odds with him, could beat Li Jing with one hand. Li Jing's defeat did not surprise the 28 mansions at all. However, they could not just watch the show. Naturally, they had to kill Essence Demon together, and only then could they return to report to the Jade Emperor. Slay the demon. The 28 mansions activated the formation, and thousands of starlight and auspicious chi suddenly fell. All kinds of immortal Dharma treasures surged out, and 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals charged towards Yuan Ling in a frenzy. A great battle began. Yuan Ling shook the Bronze Sutra and fought with Li Jing and the others to a standstill. He even fled into the distance from time to time. This battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The blood of 10,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals dyed the sky red, and the 28 mansions were all seriously injured. Apart from Li Jing, who was a grand unity mystic immortal and could barely resist Yuan Ling, the others were constantly retreating, and Yuan Ling was about to break out of the encirclement. This scene was very well presented in the heavenly mirror, and it also made the immortals in the Jade Pool have different expressions. Even the Jade Emperor, the supreme of the 3 realms, looked a little pale. The pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, who led the 28 mansions and 30,000 heavenly soldiers, was actually defeated by Essence Demon. He was not even as good as a mysterious Taoist. This was simply a disgrace to the celestial court and the Jade Emperor. Ladies and gentlemen, who can slay this demon? The Jade Emperor finally could not sit still, and there was some anger in his voice. Unfortunately, no one in the Jade Pool stood out, and this made the Jade Emperor's face even gloomier. Perhaps some people would ask, is there no one who can subdue Essence Demon, who is only a grand unity mystic immortal, in the 33 heavens of the Heaven Realm? In fact, the strength of the Heaven Realm was unimaginably terrifying. However, every immortal had their own thoughts, and some immortals even wanted to see the Jade Emperor make a fool of himself. For example, the son of Li Jing, Neza, the great divinity of the 3 jars of the sea, could kill Yuan Mo by himself. Then there was Erlang, the holy lord of the Guanjiang estuary, who could easily kill a primordial unity mystic immortal. Chapter 241. Even if he was among the immortals in the Jade Pool, Yuan Ling would have no choice but to surrender if Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South attacked. Moreover, he had 3 stars, Fortune, Lushou, and Longevity, and could suppress Primordial Demon with just a drop of a coin. However, although the Jade Emperor seemed to be in charge of the heaven, earth, and mortal realms, each immortal sect was different and had different thoughts. It was not that simple, and no one wanted to be the first one to stand out. For example, in the distant past, the lawless monkey almost destroyed the entire heavenly court when he was merely a primordial unity Xian immortal. He even boasted that the Jade Emperor would take turns to be the next emperor, and today, he would come to his house. Was there no immortal who could subdue that monkey? No, it was not that there were no immortals who could subdue that monkey. It was just that the monkey had a powerful background and they could not afford to offend him. One had to know that the monkey was formed from the 5-colored divine stone, and the 5-colored divine stone was something that goddess Nuwa had left behind in the earth immortal realm. This monkey was also the disciple of Patriarch Bodhi. Who could afford to offend it? After the monkey was conferred the title of Fighting Immortal Buddha, his cultivation had reached an unimaginable level in the past tens of thousands of years. No one in the 3 realms dared to offend the orthodoxy of Mount Huagua alone. Although the topic was a little off topic, it also proved that immortals only cared about their own business. They were deeply afraid of making a mistake and falling into karma. If they died, wouldn't the loss outweigh the gain? Look, that Taoist is attacking. When the Jade Pool fell into silence, Yi Xian finally attacked Yuan Ling in the Heaven Mirror. At this moment, the 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were retreating in defeat. Li Jing was also struggling to resist. Yi Xian had wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, but he did not expect these immortals to be so weak. Seeing that Yuan Ling was about to break free, how could Yi Xian let him escape so easily? Die! Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner, and the grand unity immortal light descended. He once again engaged in a fierce battle with Yuan Ling. Quick, help this Taoist kill primordial devil. Li Jing's spirit was roused as he hurriedly called for the 28 lunar mansions to cooperate with Yi Xian to attack Yuan Ling once again. Rumble. The celestial light split the sky, and the firmament cracked. This battle shook the 33 heavens. If it were not for the existence of the heaven-protecting formation in the heaven realm, the power of the 2 primordial unity Xian immortals alone would have been enough to turn the void thousands of miles into ashes. Soul Destruction Guide. Immortal Transformation Art. The Bronze Celestial Sutra and the soul-suppressing banner collided. It was as if 2 primordial divine mountains were colliding. The resplendent and terrifying celestial light covered the 2 of them, and the aftershock of the power sent Li Jing and the 28 mansions flying. The celestial light was so dazzling that they couldn't see clearly what was happening. The Jade Lake celestial beings stared at the divine mirror, wondering what the outcome of this battle would be. At this moment, in the turbulent celestial light, Yi Xian and Yuan Ling were covered. Yuan Ling laughed sinisterly and said in a cold and strange voice, Yi Xian, I can tell you that the earth immortal realm is very big, and there are many things that you can't imagine. Do you really think that the celestial beings of the heaven realm can represent the entire earth immortal realm? I can tell you that Yuan Ling is just an imprint of my primordial spirit. If my real body appeared here, the so-called celestial beings of the heaven realm would have to respectfully address me as patriarch. If I wasn't afraid of attracting the attention of the three pure ones, how could I allow you to be so presumptuous in front of me? I'll let you win by half a move today, but don't be too proud. The game of heaven and earth has just begun, and you and I will meet again in the future. Yuan Ling smiled coldly as a speck of celestial light rippled out from primordial devil's body. It quickly merged into the void and completely disappeared before Yi Xian's eyes. The celestial clouds in the 9 heavens rumbled. Flowers fell from the sky, and golden lotuses bloomed on the ground. In a vast and boundless Tao field, a green-robed Taoist sat cross-legged above the 9 heavens, emitting unimaginable celestial light. His body was hazy and illusory, but the sound of the great Tao kept coming from his mouth. Below the Taoist, the celestial beings of heaven and earth were listening to the Taoist's teachings. There were also 8 demon kings kowtowing respectfully, and the golden-winged rock prostrating its wings to express its respect for the Taoist. All of a sudden, a beam of celestial light streaked across the void and merged into the Taoist's glabella. His aura stopped, and his face turned slightly red. A trace of golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, but it quickly disappeared. However, the scripture in his mouth also stopped abruptly, waking the celestial beings and demon kings below from their Tao voices. The 3,000-year meeting has passed. All of you can leave, the Taoist said calmly. Thank you, Patriarch. The celestial beings retreated, and the demon kings kowtowed. The golden-winged rock spread its wings and soared 90,000 kilometers into the sky, leaving the Tao field. Yi Xian, my good disciple, when we meet again, will you be able to recognize me? The Taoist spoke gently, but his voice contained a cold and stern intent. He slowly disappeared above the 9 heavens. The Taoist's external incarnation used the heaven evasion technique to escape, which caused the Taoist's heart and soul to be severely injured. However, the Taoist's greatest unwillingness was to be destroyed by Yi Xian after 10,000 years of planning. The heaven realm, the 33 heavens. Yi Xian stared fixedly at the essence demon's body, emitting an aura that kept people away. No one knew what he was thinking. Congratulations, fellow Taoist, for killing the essence demon. This is a great merit. His Majesty will definitely reward you handsomely. Li Jing laughed loudly as he walked over. Behind him were the 28 lunar mansions, and they were greeting Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond at all. He strolled to the essence demon's body, picked up the bronze scripture that had fallen to the ground, and then quickly put it into the Sumera space. He became even more silent. Yi Xian had always thought that Yuan Ling was a remnant soul that existed in the world. As long as he destroyed his remnant soul, he would be able to sit back and relax. However, judging from Yuan Ling's words and the spell he used to escape, he was not a remnant soul at all. Instead, he was the external incarnation of some mighty figure from the earth immortal world. An invisible shadow shrouded Yi Xian's mind, and the pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down, and his expression gradually became calm. Yes, if Yuan Ling was only a remnant soul, how could he have cultivated the essence demon, a primordial unity golden immortal, and even destroyed his soul 10,000 years ago? Yi Xian did not know who Yuan Ling's real body was, but he could tell from Yuan Ling's words that he must be an extremely important figure in the earth immortal world. Even the immortals of the heaven realm had to address him as patriarch. However, Yi Xian could only put this matter aside now, because his appearance had already attracted the attention of the immortals of the heaven realm. What he had to do next was to deal with them. Immortal of the lower realm, His Majesty summons you to the Lingshao Hall for an audience. An immortal official came over on a cloud, conveying the decree of the Jade Emperor, the ruler of the 3 realms. Fellow Taoist, killing the essence demon is a great merit. His Majesty will definitely reward you. Let's go quickly. Don't let His Majesty wait too long. The golden-armored soldier had already carried the essence demon's body toward the Lingxiao Hall. Li Jing also greeted Yi Xian, obviously intending to befriend Yi Xian. Chapter 242. After all, although there were many immortals in the heaven realm, there were not many who could really work for the Jade Emperor. Although Yi Xian's background was unknown, he had the cultivation of a grand unity mystic immortal. Even the primordial demon was killed by him. If this person could be used by the Jade Emperor, it would be a great thing. The Jade Emperor. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Li Jing's expression changed and he hurriedly reminded him, "Fellow Taoist, although you killed the primordial demon, His Majesty is the master of the three realms. When you arrive at the Lingxiao Hall, you have to perform the etiquette of a subject. You must not call the Jade Emperor directly. This is a crime of great disrespect. Fellow Taoist, you have to remember." After saying that, Li Jing rode a magic cloud and brought Yi Xian all the way to the Lingxiao Hall. During this journey, he kept inquiring about Yi Xian's background, but Yi Xian evaded him. Yi Xian could not tell him that he was not from the earth immortal world, but from the human world. He was afraid that if this matter were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. At the same time, in the Lingxiao Hall of the Bullfighting Palace, the sky was boundless, and the stars filled the sky. There was even a faint glow of auspicious qi in the Lingxiao Hall. The Jade Emperor was sitting upright in a golden imperial robe. Below him stood many immortal officials and divine generals. Everyone's faces were solemn and respectful. Yi Xian, an immortal from the lower realm, is here to see the Jade Emperor. With the immortal officials' shout, Yi Xian entered the Lingxiao Hall under Li Jing's lead. However, when Yi Xian saw the immortals present, his pupils constricted slightly, and his heart twitched violently. Then, he regained his composure, and his expression was even more indifferent. It was no wonder that Yi Xian was shocked, because he realized that among the immortals present, there were a few people with extremely powerful cultivation bases. Even though he was a grand unity mystic immortal, he was slightly inferior. However, Yi Xian also noticed a problem. These powerful immortals all had their eyes closed, as if nothing could disturb their state of mind. It seems that the heaven realm is not an iron bucket. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed as he sneered in his heart. An extremely bold idea arose in his mind. Is that Yi Xian, the immortal from the lower realm who killed Primordial Devil? The Jade Emperor was high and mighty. Although his appearance was handsome and refined, one would feel a sense of awe when looking at him. He was speaking to Yi Xian in a dignified manner. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. A hint of fear flashed through his eyes because he couldn't see through the Jade Emperor's cultivation. Yi Xian only glanced at the Jade Emperor, who was in charge of the three realms, and he felt that the Jade Emperor was unfathomable. I am Yi Xian. Yi Xian's Taoist connotation was full. He bowed in a Taoist way, appearing neither servile nor overbearing. He had the charm of an immortal who transcended the three realms and the five elements. How dare you? You are just an itinerant immortal from the lower realm. Why don't you kneel before His Majesty after entering the heavenly palace? An immortal official jumped out and shouted angrily at Yi Xian. Your Majesty, this itinerant immortal from the lower realm has no manners. He treats the laws of heaven as nothing. He should be banished to the path of the beast and reincarnated for 10 lives. Only then can his crime of disrespecting the heavens be eliminated. Fire Lord had a bad temper. Although he only had the cultivation of a golden immortal, he looked down on itinerant immortals from the lower realm the most. He thought that they were disrespectful to the heavens and earth and were just a motley crew. This made him furious. Fire Lord could not be blamed for targeting Yi Xian. Tens of thousands of years ago, ever since the monkey broke through the heavenly palace, the prestige of the celestial court plummeted. Many demon kings from the earth immortal realm treated the heavenly realm as nothing. Many itinerant immortals even disdained to associate themselves with the immortals and gods from the heavenly realm. This situation was extremely serious. This was also the reason why Fire Lord targeted Yi Xian. Fire Lord was not the only one who had such thoughts. Julingshan stepped out from the crowd and said with a loud voice, "Your Majesty has always been fair in rewarding and punishing. Although this itinerant immortal from the lower realm has the merit of eliminating the devil, he has also committed the crime of disrespecting the heavens. Although he should be rewarded for his meritorious service, he should go to the immortal slaying platform for his crime of disrespecting the heavens." The immortals watched this scene indifferently. Fire Lord and Julingshan were both the Jade Emperor's people. Obviously, these two wanted to intimidate Yi Xian and show the prestige of the celestial court. They were also flattering the Jade Emperor in disguise. Beyond the three realms, not in the five elements, immortal and indestructible, not filthy and not clean. I was born at the beginning of the world. When I attained the Tao in the untainted land, I saw Tao ancestor Hengjun fusing with the Tao. I also saw the three pure ones establishing a sect and becoming a saint. I also saw Nuwa mending the heavens and creating humans. I only know that there is the Tao, but not the heavens. Other than Tao ancestor Hengjun who fused with the Tao, who dares to call himself the heavens? If Tao ancestor Hengjun is here, I will definitely bow down. Otherwise, even the three pure ones would not dare to represent the heavens. Although the celestial court is noble, how can it represent the heavens and make me bow down? Facing the immortals of the heaven realm and the high and mighty Jade Emperor, Yi Xian wasn't afraid at all. He started to spout nonsense and even pulled on the tiger's skin, bringing out the Hengjun Tao ancestor and the three pure ones. This caused the immortals to be deathly silent. Shock flashed through their eyes as they looked at Yi Xian. Although Yi Xian had just entered the Earth Immortal world, he knew some things about the Earth Immortal world from the Moon God. The demon kings of the Earth Immortal world did not care about the celestial court at all. There were even powerful figures with remarkable abilities who called them ancestors. If he knelt down and bowed to the celestial court today, he would definitely be laughed at by the demon kings and powerful figures of the Earth Immortal world in the future. How could he establish a foothold in the Earth Immortal world? Of course, Yi Xian was full of nonsense because he was confident. He was not from the Earth Immortal world, and his name was not in the Book of Life and Death of the Underworld. His background was also not in the Celestial Court's Immortal Book. No matter how the Heaven Realm investigated him, it would be useless. They could not find out his background at all. This was also the reason why Yi Xian dared to talk nonsense. The most important reason was that Yi Xian was bragging in order to cover himself with a layer of mystery, causing the Jade Emperor and the Immortals to fear him. Of course, Yi Xian's cultivation was right there. If he really achieved Tao in the untainted age, how could he only have the cultivation of a Tai Xian immortal? But it did not matter. Yi Xian naturally had another set of excuses. Back then, I felt that Tao ancestor Hengjun used his body to merge with the Tao. I once made a great vow that I would use my 7-foot body to educate the common people. However, during the Great Witch Demon Tribulation, I fought side by side with the Eastern Emperor Tai and even lost my life in the hands of the 12 ancestors of sorcery. Although a little bit of my primordial spirit survived and can only see the light of day in this world, if the Celestial Court wants to bully me because of my weak cultivation in this world, I will fight to the death even if my soul is destroyed. Yi Xian spoke without thinking. He even mentioned the Great Witch Demon Tribulation that Yi Xian was not familiar with. The immortals present were stunned. They did not know if what Yi Xian said was true or false. Rumble. Hundreds of millions of soul-subduing banners swayed out. Yi Xian's face was sorrowful. He stood in the Lingshao Hall and looked like he was going to destroy everything. At this moment, the Lingshao Hall was dead silent. Everyone was wondering if what Yi Xian said was true or false. Chapter 243. After all, this Taoist dared to mention Tao ancestor Hongjun and the three pure ones. This was no small matter. If what this person said was true, wouldn't this Taoist be a living ancient Daoyuo Jingxian? The Daoyuo Jingxian was a supreme figure who was beyond the three realms and not in the five elements. Not to mention the celestial court, even in front of the great orthodoxies, the immortals and demon kings had to respectfully address him as patriarch. Just as everyone was having different thoughts, Venus Taibai appeared beside the Jade Emperor with a solemn expression. A jade butterfly was placed in front of the Jade Emperor. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito as she said, "Your Majesty, I've checked the celestial book of immortals. There's no record of this person at all. I've even sent a message to the 10 kings of hell, but the book of life and death couldn't find out his origin." Hiss. Although Taibai Jingxing's voice was soft, all the immortals present heard it. This caused the immortals of the heaven realm to suck in a breath of cold air. Astonishment flashed through their eyes as they looked at Yi Xian. Not to mention the immortals present, even the Jade Emperor's eyes narrowed and his breath became unstable. One had to know that the earth immortal realm was vast and boundless, but all living things were recorded in the book. There were even 3 divine books in this world. The first one was the Celestial Book of Immortals, also known as the Heavenly Book. It recorded the origins of all the immortals and immortals. The second one was the Book of Life and Death. It controlled the reincarnation of life and death and recorded the undead of all ages. The third one was the Book of Earth. It belonged to the ancestor of the earth immortals, Zhen Yuanzi. The spiritual roots of heaven and earth, demons and ghosts, were all recorded in the Book of Earth. Every immortal was recorded in the Book of Heaven. There had never been any exceptions. It was also a recognized law in the earth immortal realm. Yi Xian was a Tai Xian immortal, but there was no record of him in the Book of Heaven. There was only one possibility. This possibility was that what Yi Xian said was true. When he attained Tao in the primordial age, he was in the realm of Daoyuo Jingxian. Daoyuo Jingxian was beyond the 3 realms and not in the 5 elements. Naturally, Yi Xian would not be recorded in the tomes of arcane. However, during the Great Witch Demon Tribulation, he fell in the untainted land. A little of his real spirit was left behind. After a long time, he condensed his celestial body and saw the light of day again. After all, a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Even though this Taoist's cultivation had fallen to that of a primordial unity mystic immortal, it was reasonable that he could kill primordial devil. This thought appeared in the minds of all the immortals present. They were already 80% convinced of Yi Xian's words, and all of them nodded to express their goodwill, clearly intending to befriend him. Humph. Suddenly, a cold snort was heard. Among the immortals, Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South walked out from the crowd and directly reprimanded Fire Lord and Juling Shen, 2 little immortal officials. "How dare you slander Yi Daoyu? You should go to the immortal slaying stage." Fire Lord and Juling Shen's faces turned pale when they heard Heavenly Lord Longevity's scolding. They knew that they had gotten into big trouble. They knelt down to the Jade Emperor and kept kowtowing. They said in a trembling voice, "Jade Emperor, please understand. We did such a reckless thing for the sake of the Celestial Court's prestige. Please forgive us." The Jade Emperor's mind was also in turmoil. However, the 2 immortals were his men, so he could not really punish them. This made him say gently, "Although Fire Lord and Juling Shen were wrong, you were thinking for the Celestial Court. I'll punish you too to reflect on your mistakes behind closed doors for 100 years. Humph. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South snorted, obviously expressing his dissatisfaction with the Jade Emperor. He turned around and walked out of the Lingxiao Palace. However, when he passed by Yi Xian, he stopped and looked back at the immortals. His voice was extremely cold. "Yi Daoyu is the ancient Daoyuo Jingxian. He has also experienced the great tribulation of the shamans and demons. Although his cultivation has fallen greatly in this life, he is still the most virtuous person in the Taoist lineage. If anyone in the celestial court dares to humiliate him, it will be the same as humiliating the Taoist lineage. Although I'm only a primordial unity golden immortal, I will not let this matter go. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South's words were not only for the immortals, but also for the Jade Emperor. This made the atmosphere in the Lingxiao Palace slightly awkward. However, no one dared to jump out and criticize Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South. This was because all the immortals present knew that Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South was not only a primordial unity golden immortal, but the orthodoxy behind him was also extremely terrifying. No one dared to provoke him unless they were tired of living. For a moment, the Lingxiao Palace was silent. The Jade Emperor, who was sitting high above, did not show any shame or anger on his face. It was as if he was used to this kind of thing. However, if one looked closely, they would notice a cold murderous intent in the eyes of the Supreme of the Three Realms. Obviously, he was not as calm as he looked. Yi Daoyu, you and I are both Taoists. If you have time, you can come to my Longevity Palace for a gathering. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South bowed to Yi Xian and showed a kind smile. Then, he flew away on his auspicious cloud. At this moment, Yi Xian's temperament was transcendent and calm. He stood in the Lingxiao Palace. Although he was only a primordial unity mystic immortal, no immortal dared to slight him. The primordial demon has wreaked havoc in the three realms. His crimes are unforgivable. Today, Yi Xian, a rogue immortal of the lower realm, has contributed to the three realms by slaying the primordial demon. Yi Xian is conferred the title of Immortal and will be in charge of the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy. He will enter the chaotic Cloud Palace and be given the title of Demon Slayer. The Jade Emperor's voice was majestic. He directly conferred the title of Yi Xian, but did not mention that Yi Xian was the ancient Daluo Jingxian. Court is dismissed. The Jade Emperor stood up from the Emperor's throne and left the Lingxiao Palace. This also made the immortals stunned. They looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Logically speaking, Yi Xian was the ancient Daluo Jingxian. Even if Yi Xian's cultivation had fallen to that of a primordial unity mystic immortal, the title of a perfected cultivator did not match his status. What surprised the immortals the most was that the title bestowed by the Jade Emperor was too sensitive. Demon Slayer Lord Xiansheng. The Earth Immortal Realm was vast and boundless. Countless famous mountains and lakes were occupied by the Demon Kings. These Demon Kings had boundless Dharma powers. They discussed the Tao with Bodhisattvas and were friends with the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. They could go to heaven and earth as if they were walking on flat ground. There was also the Tongtian Great Demon who was on equal footing with the 10 Kings of Hell and could talk about the past and present with the immortals. These demon kings had disrespected the celestial court for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, the Jade Emperor had conferred the title of Demon Slayer on Yi Xian. The meaning behind this was extremely complicated. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was very calm. However, he was sneering in his heart. He did not refute the Jade Emperor's words. This was because Yi Xian knew that he'd already lied to the heavens. Although the heavenly book didn't record his roots and his lie seemed to be flawless, a lie was a lie. It couldn't withstand scrutiny or verification. Moreover, Yi Xian could feel that the Jade Emperor's cultivation was unfathomable. He did not believe his words at all. He was just a little afraid of him. That was why he had conferred him such a title. He was afraid that things would not be so simple in the future. Yi Xian was also very sensible. Since the two of them had some misgivings about each other, they could live in peace for the time being. However, Yi Xian had his own thoughts. Since the Jade Emperor had conferred him such a title, he was also considered a member of the Celestial Court. The Celestial Court was complicated. It was also a chance for Yi Xian to rise. Chapter 244. The 33rd Heaven of the Heaven Realm, Chaotic Cloud Palace. Demon Slayer, Perfected Lord Xiansheng. The Jade Emperor's decree spread throughout the three realms, but it did not cause any waves in the three realms. If there had to be some waves, it would be that Yi Xian's title was mocked by the Demon King of the Earth Immortal world. He did not take it to heart at all. As for who Yi Xian was, no one cared at all. The Chan sect and Jia sect had different orthodoxies and had more disputes. The Chan sect was established by Yuanshi Tianzuan. Most of its disciples were orthodox immortals, and they were also the mainstream of Taoism. The Jia sect was created by Tang Tian. Regardless of whether it was demons or ghosts, they were all accepted into the sect. However, after the battle of the investiture of the gods, the Jia sect was either dead or injured. A large number of people from the Jia sect were conferred as gods. It could be said that the Jia sect was declining. Investiture of the gods. It seemed noble, but it was actually an extremely miserable thing. After the death of the immortal, Yuan Ling was imprisoned by the investiture of the gods and turned into a god. His cultivation level could never increase. He could only be a god in the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. The investiture of the gods was controlled by the Jade Emperor. Although the Jia sect had declined, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Tang Tian was one of the three pure ones, and not many people in the three realms dared to provoke the Jia sect. The Chan sect had 12 ancient golden immortals and 3 and 4 generations of disciples. They only respected Yuanshi Tianzuan and did not respect the celestial court's orders. The Southern Celestial Venerable Longevity was a member of the Chan sect. The Aparagodania continent was not greedy or murderous. They wholeheartedly worshipped Buddha. In the great thunderclap temple of the Spirit Mountain, all the gods and Buddhas were entrenched there. Their foundation was unimaginable. In the Earth Immortal world and the 4 great divine lands, countless mighty figures with remarkable abilities had set up Taoist temples. The most famous one was the immortal Zhen Yuan of the 5 Manor, who was known as the ancestor of the Earth Immortals. Other than the immortal Zhen Yuan, the 4 great divine lands had countless demon kings who occupied the Spirit Mountain and cave abodes. The 4 seas were under the Dragon King. The Underworld. The 18 levels of Hell, the 10 kings of Hell, the civil and military judges, Oxhead and Horseface, the black and white impermanence, the city god of the underworld. This was a resplendent great era, an era where countless Daos competed for supremacy. It was absolutely not something that Yi Xian's mortal realm could compare to. Chaotic Cloud Palace. Yi Xian and Venus Taibai sat cross-legged facing each other. Yi Daoyu, I have to remind you that the Earth Immortal realm is vast and boundless. There are some people you can offend, but there are some people you can't offend. I hope Yi Daoyu takes care of yourself. Venus Taibai stood up with a smile, cupped his fists towards Yi Xian, and then rode on an auspicious cloud to leave the chaotic cloud palace. Today, Venus Taibai came here and told Yi Xian about the situation in the Earth Immortal realm. It seemed like she was kindly reminding Yi Xian, but in fact, she was just trying to find out more about Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian had also learned about the situation in the Earth Immortal realm from Venus Taibai. His expression turned grave as he fell into deep thought. Bullfighting Palace. The Jade Emperor was wearing a green Taoist robe, and Venus Taibai was bowing and reporting something to him. Your Majesty, Yi Xian's thoughts are very secretive. There are no records of him in the heavenly book. I'm afraid his background is not simple. Venus Taibai said. I govern the 3 realms for the Jade Emperor. As long as he knows his place, he will have to listen to my orders no matter which orthodoxy he belongs to. The Jade Emperor spoke calmly, with the dignity of a supreme ruler of the 3 realms. Your Majesty, Yi Xian used the demonic soul subduing banner in his battle with primordial demon. Although he has restrained his aura, the murderous aura surrounding him is definitely not good. I'm just worried that the same thing will happen again. Venus Taibai said worriedly. The Jade Emperor's breath stopped, and his originally calm face turned ashen. An image of a monkey with the mouth of a thunder god appeared in his mind, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Back then, that monkey came into being and caused the heaven realm to lose face. All of this was led by the two saints of the West, and I could only go with the flow. As the Jade Emperor spoke to hear, his voice paused for a moment before he said, "It's just that this Yi Xian is too mysterious. Even I am unable to deduce his origins. I'm afraid that this is the method of a saint, so I can only temporarily appease him. If he knows his place and works for me, I will definitely not treat him unfairly. However, if he has no background and is ambitious, then I can only let him go to the Immortal slaying platform." Others might not know the Jade Emperor's cultivation, but how could Venus Taibai not know? He bowed and said, "Your Majesty is mighty." Back then, that monkey was arrogant and domineering, and the Immortals watched coldly. If your Majesty wasn't the ruler of the three realms and couldn't take action, that monkey would have been killed by your Majesty. How can this Yi Xian compare to that monkey? Naturally, he can't escape from your Majesty's control. Go, keep an eye on this person. If he doesn't know his place, report to me at any time, the Jade Emperor said calmly. Yes, your Majesty. Venus Taibai bowed and left. In the bullfighting palace, the Jade Emperor narrowed his eyes, and his body was surrounded by celestial light. He murmured in confusion, "What is the background of this Yi Xian that even my vast heaven celestial method can't figure it out?" Chaotic Cloud Palace. The palace had no roof, and the sky was filled with stars. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void and woke up from his deep thoughts. The three realms are too complicated. The so-called schemes and tricks can only be used as a means. I have to be strong myself, Yi Xian murmured to himself. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flash of light. Buzz! Yi Xian's sleeves fluttered, and the moon goddess appeared in the chaotic cloud palace in a daze. When she felt the surrounding spiritual qi, her face lit up, and her body trembled with excitement. Earth. Earth Immortal Realm. This is the Earth Immortal Realm. The moon goddess bit her lips, and her voice trembled slightly. This is not just the Earth Immortal Realm. You and I are now in the Celestial Court, Yi Xian said indifferently. The Celestial Court. The moon goddess's face turned pale. Only then did she see the stars in the sky above her head, and there was even light and auspicious air flowing in the firmament. I'm back. I'm going to find Master. As the moon goddess spoke, she walked out of the chaotic cloud palace. Clearly, she had just returned to the Earth Immortal Realm and naturally wanted to return to the moon goddess's side. Unfortunately, before the moon goddess could take a few steps, a celestial light froze her in place. The temperature in the entire chaotic cloud palace kept dropping, and a silent terror attacked the moon goddess. At this moment, the moon goddess's face froze, and she trembled as she turned to look at Yi Xian. She saw that Yi Xian's eyes were slightly narrowed, and the tiny celestial light flowed between his palms. He looked at the moon goddess with a murderous gaze. What do you want?" The moon goddess gritted her teeth, and there was panic in her eyes. Thud, thud, thud. Yi Xian walked over slowly. With every step he took, the moon goddess felt as if a mountain was constantly bombarding her heart. A look of despair flashed across her eyes. She had already guessed Yi Xian's intention. "You want to kill me? Shouldn't I kill you?" It was a simple conversation, but it was full of murderous intent. The reason was simple. Yi Xian was not from the Earth Immortal Realm. He had lied to the Immortals, and the only one who knew his true identity was Yuan Ling and this woman. Only the dead could keep secrets. This was the reason why Yi Xian wanted to kill the moon goddess. Chapter 245. Yi Xian, you promised me before. Are you going to break your promise now? Moon Goddess's face was pale. She was fighting for a chance to live. That's right. I did promise you before, but that promise was only to bring you back to the Earth God's realm. Now that I've fulfilled my promise, I can't let you live, Yi Xian said coldly. Tai's celestial light flowed. He was going to kill this woman in the next moment. Moon Goddess said in a trembling voice, Yi Daoyu, you planted a blood contract in my mind. I won't expose your secret. You're wrong. Only a dead person can keep a secret. Yi Xian shook his head slowly. Tai's celestial light shone from his palms and fingers. He aimed at the woman's forehead. Not only did he want to destroy her body, but he also wanted to shatter her spiritual soul. Only then would he succeed. Wait! Suddenly, Moon Goddess screamed. If you let me go, the Moon Goddess will owe you a favor. Buzz! 1 inch. Just 1 inch away. Yi Xian's palms stopped. A favor? Yi Xian's eyes looked strange as he murmured. That's right. A favor from the Moon Goddess. Moon Goddess bit her lips. She was afraid that Yi Xian would attack her. She quickly explained, in the 3 realms, although the Moon Goddess lives alone in the Moon Palace, she is the most beautiful woman in the 3 realms. If you are in trouble in the future, ask her for help. She will help you. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed as he looked at the Moon God's pale face. The killing intent around him slowly dissipated, causing the Moon God to let out a sigh of relief. For the time being, she didn't have to worry about her life. Ask a woman to help me out. Yi Xian shook his head slowly. His smile was self-deprecating. His eyes were drifting. No one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian, don't underestimate the Guanghan fairy. The Guanghan fairy is an ancient goddess. You've just entered the Earth Immortal realm, so it's better to have one more friend than one more enemy, right? The Moon God advised. You're wrong. I, Yi Xian, will never let a woman protect me. I won't kill you because I want you to see how I, Yi Xian, climb to the top and look down on the 3 realms. Yi Xian coldly smiled. As his sleeves fluttered, he once again put the Moon God into his Sumeru space. Yi Xian was a proud person, and he was someone who would do anything to achieve his goals, but Yi Xian didn't need a woman to protect him. He thought about it for a long time. He realized that if he killed Moon God, he would be able to keep his secret. Moon God Fairy was the #1 fairy in the 3 realms. If he could use her, it would be of great help to his plan. Yes, make use of her. Yi Xian's idea was simple. With Moon Goddess as a bridge, he could get in touch with the Moon Goddess. He could make use of the 3 realms #1 fairy to do things that he couldn't do for the time being. In Yi Xian's eyes, a woman was just a tool. She could be his plaything. She could be a weapon that he could use to kill people. Moreover, Yi Xian looked down on Fairy Guanghan from the bottom of his heart. In terms of cultivation, Fairy Guanghan probably wasn't that high. It was just that her beauty was unparalleled in the 3 realms, causing the immortals of the 3 realms and even the Jade Emperor to drool over her. Yi Xian had to admit that when he saw the Moon Goddess transform into the Moon Goddess, he was a little distracted. He wanted to press the Moon Goddess under him and ravage her. Yi Xian didn't avoid this. He was a man. Men had desires. If he didn't have them, he wouldn't be a man. But Yi Xian wouldn't bow down to a woman, even if she was the #1 fairy in the 3 realms. That was the difference between Yi Xian and the Jade Emperor. Right now, Yi Xian had 3 things to do. The first thing was to send the Moon God to the Moon Palace to meet the so-called Moon Fairy and plan for the next step of his plan. Second, he had to go to the Longevity Immortal Palace. The Southern Longevity Immortal Palace obviously wanted to be friends with him. It was a good chance for him to increase his power. As for the third thing, he had to meet the 3,000 Celestial River Navy that he was in charge of. If even the celestial soldiers and celestial generals didn't recognize him, it would prove that Yi Xian was a failure. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that although his title of Demon Slayer Lord Xiansheng sounded nice and seemed to be on the same level as Erlang Lord Xiansheng, he was nothing in the heaven realm. Erlang Lord Xiansheng was a famous war god in the world. He was also a disciple of Immortal Yuding, one of the 12 ancient golden immortals. He was also a third-generation disciple of the Chan sect. No one in the three realms dared to offend him, whether it was his cultivation or the orthodoxy behind him. Yi Xian had no roots. He had just gained a foothold in the celestial court by telling a big lie. Above him, there was 9 brilliant Star Lord and the Marshal of the Celestial River Navy. Yi Xian still had to listen to the orders of these immortals. However, Yi Xian wasn't disappointed because he also had his own trump cards and a series of plans. As long as he moved forward steadily, he would definitely be able to stand proudly at the top. Yi Xian sorted out his thoughts in the chaotic cloud palace. Then, he rode an auspicious cloud and went straight to the Longevity Immortal Palace. The Longevity Immortal Palace. The bridge of clouds was continuous and auspicious. In the sea of clouds, there were even red-crowned cranes flying and circling. At first glance, it gave people a feeling of unparalleled beauty. When Yi Xian arrived, 2 fairy children walked out of the Longevity Immortal Palace. They bowed to Yi Xian and said, "Grandmaster ordered the 2 of us to welcome Immortal Lord. Please come inside the palace for a chat." As the 2 fairy children spoke, they led the way for Yi Xian. They also allowed Yi Xian to stroll into the Longevity Immortal Palace. "Yi Daoyu, I've been waiting for you for a long time." In the Longevity Immortal Palace, the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal was sitting cross-legged on a futon. He had already prepared the immortal tea and was looking at Yi Xian with a smile. The 2 fairy children retreated and the door of the palace slowly closed. Yi Xian smiled and sat cross-legged in front of Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal. He said, "You're the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal. You're also an extraordinary figure in the heaven realm. Even the Jade Emperor has to give you some face. Today, I came uninvited. I hope you don't blame me." Yi Xian's words were sincere and the Tao around him was upright. Naturally, Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal felt very close to him. "You must be joking. You and I are both Taoists. I wonder if you're from the Chan sect or the Jie sect." Although Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal had a good impression of Yi Xian, he naturally had to treat Yi Xian differently. If Yi Xian was from the Jie sect, he naturally had to keep a certain distance from him. "I'm not from the 2 sections. Back in the untainted land, I only believed in the heavenly Tao and nature." Yi Xian had already prepared his speech. At this moment, he spoke tirelessly. "Oh." Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal's eyes lit up and his tone became more intimate. He said, "You've just entered the celestial court. Although you're a Tai Yi Xian Immortal, if you're willing to join the Chan sect, it's also a great merit." Chapter 246. Apparently, Changsheng Tianzuan intended to rope in Yi Xian. After all, there were not many primordial unity Xian immortals in the celestial court. Changsheng Tianzuan was delighted to have Yi Xian join the Chanism. Unfortunately, Yi Xian would not join the Chanism. He had just entered the Earth Immortal realm and did not fully understand the situation there. Even if he wanted to join a certain orthodoxy, he would have to think carefully. Yi Xian purposely pretended to be in a difficult position, causing Heavenly Sovereign Changsheng to instantly wake up. He clearly knew that he was a bit rash. The 2 of them weren't too familiar with each other, so how could such a big matter be easily decided? "Fellow Taoist, please don't blame me. I was too reckless. But you can think about it. Fellow Taoist, you might not be familiar with the current 3 realms. Take a look at Erlang Sheng and Neza, the great god of the sea. They are all 3rd-generation disciples of the Chan school. If you join the Chan school, your future achievements will definitely not be inferior to those two junior brothers. Heavenly Lord Changsheng said smugly. Yi Xian knew that Changsheng Tianzuan was telling the truth even without the introduction. In the three realms, only Buddhism and the Chanism were powerful. The Jia sect had already fallen in the War of the Gods. There were many monster kings in the Earth Immortal realm. Each of them had a deep relationship with Buddhism and Taoism. The two sat down and discussed Taoism, no longer mentioning the orthodoxy. From Taoism to Changsheng Tiandao, both of them expressed their own opinions. They really regretted not having met each other earlier. No matter what Taoism Changsheng Tianzuan proposed, he could verify it with Yi Xian. This also made Changsheng Tianzuan more convinced that Yi Xian must be an ancient golden immortal. Otherwise, how could he discuss Taoism with him for so long? However, Changsheng Tianzuan did not know that Yi Xian cultivated the immortal scripture. This scripture was something that existed since the beginning of the world. It was easy for him to discuss it with a primordial unity golden immortal. When the two of them were discussing Tao, Heavenly Lord Changsheng introduced Yi Xian to him in a subtle way. He tried his best to get Yi Xian to join his lineage. However, Yi Xian avoided the important points and did not directly agree to his request. The Moon Palace's Moon Fairy. Unknowingly, Yi Xian had led the topic to the Fairy of Guanghan. This also stunned the longevity immortal venerable, and a wisp of infatuation flashed through his eyes. Then, he quickly came to his senses and smiled flatteringly to cover up his ugly absent-mindedness. Fairy Guanghan lives alone in the Moon Palace. Other than the Immortality Peach Banquet and the Ginseng Fruit Banquet established by the earthly immortal ancestor, I've seen her twice from afar. Fellow Taoist, may I know why you are asking about this? Heavenly Premier Longevity asked in puzzlement. Yi Xian smiled lightly and said, "It's just that I've heard that Fairy Guanghan is the #1 fairy in the three realms. However, I've never seen her before, so I'm naturally curious." Hearing Yi Xian's explanation, Heavenly Premier Longevity nodded slowly and then advised, "Fellow Taoist, listen to me. It's better if you don't meet Fairy Guanghan. In the future, when you pass by the Moon Palace, you have to take a detour." Oh. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed, and he smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean? Could it be that Fairy Guanghan can eat people?" Heavenly Premier Longevity shook his head and smiled bitterly. Fairy Guanghan's beauty is irresistible. Although she can't eat people, some people have feelings for her. Look at the Jade Emperor, the ruler of the three realms. His cultivation is unfathomable, and he was once obsessed with him for thousands of years. Look at Sage Erlang. Every 100 years, he would bring thousands of flowers to the Moon Palace. There are also too many powerful people who yearn for Fairy Guanghan but can't get her. 10,000 years ago, Yuan Mo was a primordial unity golden immortal. He was an existence that brought chaos to the three realms. When he heard of Fairy Guanghan's beauty, he personally stepped into the Moon Palace. Guess what happened in the end? Heavenly Premier Longevity smiled bitterly and shook his head. What happened? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked. Yuan Mo was too arrogant. He thought that he could do whatever he wanted in the three realms and that the immortals of the celestial court couldn't do anything to him. In fact, he didn't know that it was because the real powerful people didn't want to suppress him. However, when he stepped into the Moon Palace, he completely angered these people. Heavenly Premier Longevity's eyes were a little dazed as he said this. He continued, that day, the situation at the mouth of the Guanjiang River changed. The war god of the three realms, Yang Jian, wielded a three-pointed, double-edged sword and used his Dharma form to kill his way into the 33rd heaven from the Earth Immortal world. He went straight into the Moon Palace. With just one slash, he blasted Yuan Mo down to the heaven realm. He even chased him for hundreds of millions of miles and almost killed Yuan Mo. Yuan Mo fled pathetically. Although he escaped from Yang Jian, some immortals seized the opportunity when Yuan Mo was seriously injured and sealed him in the reverse passage. That's why the so-called ancient war happened. Therefore, I would like to advise fellow Taoists that if you pass by the Moon Palace in the future, you must take a detour. If you make some people unhappy, no one can save you even if you join the Chan sect. Heavenly Premier Longevity spoke tirelessly. He was also implicitly reminding Yi Xian not to have any thoughts about the Fairy of the Moon Palace. This was because Yi Xian couldn't afford to pay the price. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's expression didn't change at all in the face of Heavenly Premier Longevity's warning. No one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian had to go to the Moon Palace, and the sooner the better. This was because not only did he want to send the Moon Goddess to the Moon Palace, but he also wanted to use the Fairy of the Moon Palace to achieve some of the things he wanted to do. The two chatted for half a day. Yi Xian also stood up and bid farewell. When he left the Longevity Immortal Palace, Heavenly Premier Longevity's smile was no longer there. He looked at Yi Xian's departing figure and a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. This Taoist is too shrewd. He's definitely not an ordinary person, Heavenly Premier Longevity muttered to himself. After leaving the Longevity Immortal Palace, Yi Xian rode a cloud and left. However, Yi Xian didn't know that an immortal official had already informed the Jade Emperor of his whereabouts. Obviously, the Jade Emperor had been watching his every word and action. In the chaotic Cloud Palace, Yi Xian sat cross-legged. His face was gloomy. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flicker of blood-red light. Yi Xian had obtained a lot of useful information from Heavenly Premier Longevity, especially about the Fairy of the Moon Palace. It was obvious that she was a taboo in the three realms. If one didn't have great abilities, they would probably suffer an unimaginable calamity if they offended her. Ha! Suddenly, Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. He muttered, "Is it a femme fatale, or a femme fatale? Let me, Yi Xian, see just how charming you, the legendary fairy Guanghan, are." Buzz! Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands. The Taiyi immortal light spread out and covered his body. A forbidden secret technique was also used by Yi Xian. Primordial Spirit Void. These four simple words came from the chaotic Cloud Palace. Yi Xian merged into the void. His aura was restrained to the extreme. He then took a step forward and suddenly disappeared from the chaotic Cloud Palace. The direction he went was the forbidden area of the Celestial Court, the Moon Palace where the Fairy of the Moon Palace lived alone. Chapter 247. In the vast heaven realm, the stars were spread out. In the 33 levels of heaven, cloud bridges rose and connected to each other. There were also auspicious clouds and beautiful lights. From time to time, there were heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals patrolling. There were also many fairies carrying flower baskets in the heaven realm. Yi Xian used the primordial spirit void secret technique and walked quietly in the heaven realm. However, his aura was restrained to the extreme. He did not dare to leak out the slightest bit, as he was afraid that he would attract the attention of the powerful figures with remarkable powers. Yi Xian wasn't arrogant in the slightest. He was well aware of his own capabilities. Although he relied on his potential to become a Grand Unity Xian Immortal, just this heaven realm alone was filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. If he made a mistake, he would really be in danger of dying. The primordial spirit void secret technique was a forbidden secret technique. Although this technique was extremely strange, Yi Xian was not completely confident that he could not be discovered by anyone. Fortunately, Yi Xian did not encounter any accidents along the way. He also saw the outline of the Moon Palace in the distance. The Moon Palace was also called the Moon Palace. It was the Taoist field of the Moon Fairy. However, the Moon Palace was different. It was not located in the 33 levels of heaven. Its Taoist field was built on the Moon Star. Yes, it was the Moon Star. Since ancient times, the great witch demon tribulation had shattered the primordial world and turned it into the three realms of heaven and earth. Stars filled the sky and hung in the 33 heavens of the heaven realm. The lunar star had also become the Taoist field of the fairy of Guanghan. The hazy moonlight poured down in torrents. When Yi Xian stepped on the moon's star, he saw a palace made of white jade standing in the distance. There was also a Tongtian osmanthus tree rooted at the side, emitting auspicious qi and immortal light. The Moon Palace? Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he took a step forward and quietly appeared in front of the Guanghan Palace. The world was silent and there was no sound. There was no sound coming from the Moon Palace. Other than the Tongtian osmanthus tree swaying under the moonlight, the entire Moon Palace gave off a cold and indifferent feeling. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and restrained his aura to the extreme. He turned into a ray of light and sneaked into the Moon Palace. In the Moon Palace, the 4 jade pillars and the hazy moonlight could be seen at a glance. Celestial light crisscrossed as the moonlight scattered down. Yi Xian followed his footsteps and quietly snuck towards the back of the hall. He'd already heard the sound of water coming from the back of the hall. It had to be said that the primordial spirit void technique was very strange. Not only did it allow Yi Xian to sneak into the Moon Palace, but it also allowed him to sneak into the Moon Palace without anyone knowing. When Yi Xian stepped into the back of the hall, the scene that followed caused him to freeze on the spot. Even the aura around him became extremely chaotic. In the rear hall, there was a celestial pond that was steaming with misty water vapor. A bamboo curtain made the celestial pond faintly discernible. However, there was a woman in the celestial pond washing herself. The clear water flowed past every inch of her skin, giving off a hazy and illusory sense of beauty. It was faintly discernible and caused one's imagination to run wild. Although Yi Xian could not see the woman's face due to the bamboo curtain and the water vapor, when she raised her arms, it brought out a large expanse of spring. Her towering, exquisite, and round breasts swayed slightly, as if they could turn one into a beast and do something that would anger both men and gods. Damn it! With just one glance, Yi Xian's mind was shaken and his blood was boiling. He cursed in his heart and tried his best to suppress his turbulent emotions. Needless to say, the woman in the celestial pond was undoubtedly the Moon Palace fairy. Yi Xian happened to see the Moon Palace fairy bathing and saw a large expanse of her body. This made Yi Xian unsure if he should retreat. Who is it? All of a sudden, a cold voice came from the celestial pond. Endless moonlight covered the celestial pond and a white palace gauze covered her exquisite and mysterious body. Not a single trace of her body was exposed. Oh no! Yi Xian cursed himself for being too stupid. Just now, when his mind was in a mess, there was a flaw in the primordial spirit void mystic technique and a trace of his aura was exposed. Obviously, the Moon Palace fairy had discovered it. Rumble. The moonlight was blazing and the palace rumbled. There was only a bamboo curtain between the two of them. Fortunately, Yi Xian restrained his aura and used the primordial spirit void mystic technique to the extreme. Once again, he hid in the void. How dare you? Who dares to trespass into the Moon Palace? The Moon Palace fairy gritted her teeth and a trace of anger flashed across her face. She used an immortal technique to find Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian hurriedly left the rear hall. As his eyes moved, he quickly opened the Sumeru space and released the moon god. He even sent a sound transmission to her, "I've already sent you to the Guanghan Palace. Quickly go and meet with your master, but you must remember, if you dare to reveal my identity, I will definitely destroy your soul and kill you." The moon goddess appeared in the Moon Palace. Looking at the familiar surroundings, she was so excited that she could not control herself. However, she did not know what had just happened. She followed the Moon Palace fairy's voice and hurried to the back of the palace. Master, Yun Yang is back, the moon goddess said excitedly. She had already entered the back of the palace. This made Yi Xian let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, he reacted fast enough. Otherwise, if the Moon Palace fairy knew that he had seen her body, she would fight him to the death. The cold celestial light disappeared without a trace. The Moon Palace fairy's surprised voice came from the back of the palace. After a full 2 hours, a woman walked out from the back of the palace. In her arms, she was holding a snow-white jade rabbit. She was beautiful. She was so beautiful that she could make all living things go crazy. As she looked, it was as if the sky and earth would lose their color before her. It was just one look, but Yi Xian's eyes were a bit infatuated. His mind was in turmoil. It was as if he was going to fall into the Moon Palace fairy's face. Although Yi Xian had seen the moon god's manifestation of the moon goddess before, when he truly saw the number one fairy of the 3 realms, he knew why the Jade Emperor and the immortals in the sky were so infatuated with her that they couldn't extricate themselves. She was cold and pure. Her face was like ice. She gave people the feeling that they could only look at her from afar and could not profane her. She was like a lonely moon. Her entire body was blooming with an icy temperament. Along with her face that could turn the 3 realms upside down, it made people feel inferior. They felt that in the 3 realms, there was no man who was good enough for this woman. At this moment, the Moon Palace fairy was holding the jade rabbit. Her entire body was emitting a cold aura. Her face that could turn the 3 realms upside down was serious. She was sizing up Yi Xian. When she noticed Yi Xian's infatuated gaze, the Moon Palace fairy frowned. However, she did not say anything. She had seen this kind of gaze too many times. It had changed her from the initial disgust to the current calmness. You are very beautiful. Suddenly, the infatuation in Yi Xian's eyes was gone. His expression had returned to normal. He even praised her. Looking at Yi Xian's clear eyes, the Moon Palace fairy was surprised. She looked at Yi Xian with a bit of curiosity. One had to know that she had seen too many men. Whether it was the ruler of the 3 realms or the celestial gods and Buddhas, very few people could regain their sanity when they looked at her. Chapter 248. However, the person in front of her had only fallen for her for a moment. His eyes quickly regained their purity, as if he had not been captivated by her beauty. How could she not be surprised? It's been so many years. Very few people have spoken to me like that. You're the 3rd. The moon fairy seemed to have thought of something. Her starry eyes seemed to be drifting, as if she was recalling something from the past. Who are the 2 people in front of me? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. One is an ancient god, and the other is the current ruler of the 3 realms. You're the 3rd person who dares to praise my beauty in front of me. The moon fairy woke up from her thoughts. Her voice was still cold and lonely. Yun Yang has already told me the whole story. You were the one who killed Yuan Mo and saved her remnant soul. I owe you a favor. If you need anything in the future, you can come to the Moon Palace with this jade token. A jade token floated out of the moon fairy's hand and landed directly in Yi Xian's hand. Obviously, she was ordering Yi Xian to leave. Although Yi Xian made her feel that he was different from ordinary men, in the moon fairy's heart, no man in the 3 realms was worthy of her attention. Even Yi Xian was no exception. If Yi Xian had not sent the jade rabbit back, she would not have even seen this person. Remember, this jade token can only let me help you once. I hope you consider it carefully. Also, don't tell anyone that you came to the Moon Palace today. Otherwise, you will be killed. The moon fairy was cold and lonely. She wore a white palace dress, and her hair was tied into a bun. Holding the jade rabbit in her arms, she did not look at Yi Xian. She turned and walked into the inner palace. A primordial unity golden immortal. Looking at the moon fairy's back, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He had already discovered that the moon fairy's cultivation was one level higher than his. However, Yi Xian did not feel inferior because he believed that he would not stop at the primordial unity mystic immortal realm. As for the moon fairy's disregard for him, it did not affect him in the slightest. Women were nothing more than tools. Even Fairy Guanghan, the number one fairy of the three realms, was no exception. Yi Xian looked down on the Jade Emperor, Yang Jian, and the others even more. If he had supreme cultivation and could crush the immortals and gods of the heavens, he would directly press this woman down and ruthlessly ravage her. He would tear apart her cold and pure outer clothes and let her know that no matter how beautiful she was just a man's plaything. Oh, love? The Jade Emperor and Yang Jian actually believe in love? This was what Yi Xian found most laughable. The fairy of Guanghan was the greatest killing weapon in his hands. He had already sent the jade rabbit back to her side, but he had already planted a blood contract with it. When the time was right, it would naturally be used by him. Yi Xian turned around and left. He did not linger, nor did he look at the back of the moon fairy. Although Yi Xian was obsessed with the moon fairy's appearance, he would never fall in love with this woman. This was the difference between him and the Jade Emperor and the others. In Yi Xian's belief, the number one fairy of the three realms, the ruler of the three realms, and even the three pure ones, as long as you had invincible power, you could do whatever you wanted in the three realms. Love? Impossible in this lifetime. Yi Xian did not believe in this. He only believed in his own power. If he ascended to the 9 heavens one day, the so-called number one fairy of the three realms would be ravaged by him. Who would dare to say no? Oh, noble, holy, and inviolable. In Yi Xian's eyes, these were all fake. In the face of absolute power, Yi Xian tore apart these hypocritical clothes and completely exposed his cruel and violent nature. Yi Xian admitted that he liked the moon fairy, but what he liked was her body and beauty. This was a man's most basic desire, but if he were to kneel and lick like the Jade Emperor, Yang Jian, and the others, then he, Yi Xian, would never be able to do it in his entire life. Suddenly, before Yi Xian could walk out of the moon palace, the moon fairy's cold voice rang out. Did my body look good just now? Yes, it was indeed beautiful, Yi Xian answered casually. His eyes suddenly focused and his aura fluctuated. Then, he rode on a cloud and disappeared from the moon palace. Damn it, it's really him. Within the moon palace, the moon fairy clenched her teeth as an expression of shame and indignation flashed across her face. It was obvious that she wasn't sure if it was Yi Xian, but after probing for a while, she was finally certain. However, even if she knew the truth that made her feel ashamed and indignant, she wouldn't be able to chase after Yi Xian. Unless she wanted everyone in the three realms to know that she, the moon fairy, had actually been spied on by someone. At that time, what would she do? But this matter was deeply etched in the moon fairy's heart. She would never let Yi Xian go. At the same time, in the bullfighting palace, the Jade Emperor's face was pale. He stared at the Xiantian mirror and saw Yi Xian riding a cloud into the void. He had just walked out of the moon palace. Yi Xian. Who are you? The Jade Emperor waved his mirror image away. His aura was extremely sinister. He activated the Xiantian mirror every day just to see the moon fairy's face and relieve the pain of missing her. But what did he see today? As soon as he activated the Xiantian mirror, he saw Yi Xian walk out of the moon palace. Although the Jade Emperor believed that the moon fairy would not have an affair with Yi Xian, he could not accept a stranger entering the moon palace. The Jade Emperor tried his best to calm himself down. His sinister expression returned to normal, but the killing intent in his eyes could not be stopped. The 100,000 Heavenly River Navy was one of the central forces of the Celestial Court. The highest commander was Marshal Tian Peng. Under Marshal Tian Peng were the 9 luminary Star Lords. Each of them was in charge of 10,000 Heavenly River Navy. Each Star Lord was assisted by 3 immortal officials. They were in charge of 3,000 Heavenly River Navy. Demon Slayer Saint Lord. This was Yi Xian's title. He was below the 9 luminary Star Lords. However, the 9 luminary Star Lords were only true immortals, while Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal. Clearly, this small immortal officials were not worthy of Yi Xian's cultivation. However, Yi Xian did not mind. He knew that this was the Jade Emperor's check on him. As he had just entered the Earth Immortal Realm, the complicated Celestial Court was his true foundation. 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals stood in the vast heavenly river. War drums rumbled as they were counting the troops above the heavenly river. The 9 Star Lords sat cross-legged in the void. From time to time, their immortal officials would present them with books for them to read. However, the Wood Star Lord's expression was not good. Yi Xian was one of his immortal officials. Ever since the Jade Emperor's decree conferred Yi Xian the title, Yi Xian had not taken up his post for several days. This made the Wood Star Lord furious, but he did not dare to vent his anger. After all, Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal and had killed Primogenitor Demon. It was also said that this person was the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jingxian. How could the Wood Star Lord, a mere true immortal, dare to point fingers at Yi Xian? Chapter 249. However, when he received the Jade Emperor's decree yesterday, his fear of Yi Xian completely disappeared. He wanted to establish his dignity as the glorious Wood Star Lord today. Only 2 of the 3 immortal officials are here. Why isn't Yi Xian here? The glorious Wood Star Lord's voice was as loud as a bell, immediately silencing the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy. Don't be angry, Star Lord. I've already sent someone to inform him. He must be on his way. An immortal official bowed with a flattering smile. Humph. The glorious Wood Star Lord snorted coldly and said, Yi Xian thinks that his cultivation is profound and that he has contributed to killing Essence Demon. He's actually arrogant. He's really arrogant. As soon as the glorious Wood Star Lord finished speaking, the other 8 Star Lords were stunned. They did not know what was wrong with the glorious Wood Star Lord today to target Yi Xian like this. Did he not know that Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal and had been personally conferred the title of Demon Slayer by the Jade Emperor? He was even regarded as a fellow Taoist by the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity. Where did the glorious Wood Star Lord get the guts to say such words? Just as everyone was puzzled, a beam of immortal light streaked across the sky. Yi Xian arrived on a cloud, causing the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy and the 9 brilliant Star Lord to fall silent. It's my first time in the Heaven Realm. I didn't know about the gathering of troops. Please don't blame me. Yi Xian bowed and revealed an apologetic smile. Logically speaking, although Yi Xian's immortal position was small, his cultivation was there, and he had a decree personally conferred by the Jade Emperor. Who would dare to find trouble with him over such a trivial matter? But today, when facing Yi Xian, who was 1 realm higher than him, he slapped the white jade table in front of him, pointed at Yi Xian, and scolded, How dare you? You are one of the 3 immortal officials under my command. How dare you call us fellow Taoists? Today is an important day for the Milky Way to summon the army, but you have not shown up. You are simply looking down on me and the other celestial lords. The eyes of the other 8 Star Lords narrowed. They knew very well that the Wood Brilliant Star Lord would never be so bold. Clearly, someone was backing him up, which was why something like this had happened. The water in the Heaven Realm was too deep. The 8 Star Lords remained silent and watched quietly. Anyway, Yi Xian was not their subordinate. They also wanted to see what Wood Brilliant Star Lord was going to do. At this moment, with a smile on his face, Yi Xian did not feel angry at all. He cupped his fist and bowed to Star Lord of Wood Brilliance and said, I'm sorry. I wonder how Star-Lord will punish me. Humph. Looking at Yi Xian admitting defeat, Star-Lord of Wood Brilliance felt relieved. He was really afraid that Yi Xian would not be able to control him. If that happened, he would lose all his face. But now, it seemed that although this person's cultivation was high, he was actually just a coward. This also made Star-Lord of Wood Brilliance smile contemptuously. He pretended to be pretentious and said, Yi Xian, you have offended your superior. You will be punished with 3 years of spirit stone supply. You will lead your 3,000 navy and train in the Milky Way day and night until the 3-year period is up. It was a show of strength, a blatant show of strength. When the 8 Star Lords and the 100,000 Milky Way navy were guessing whether Yi Xian would fly into a rage, the next scene made them look at Yi Xian with contempt. I accept my punishment. Yi Xian cupped his fist and did not show any anger. TSK, I thought that this demon slayer perfected lord was an incredible person since he could kill essence demon. Now, it seems that he's just a so-so. What do you know? No matter how strong perfected Lord Ye's cultivation is, he still has to abide by the rules of heaven. Star Lord of Wood Brilliance is his direct superior. How would he dare to be too presumptuous? In my opinion, he's just a coward. Not only was he punished, but he also implicated his 3,000 navy. Just wait and see. A great deal of discussion rang out from the navy. Although their voices were very soft, none of the 9 Star Lords present were deaf. They obviously heard it all. At this moment, the 8 Star Lords shook their heads helplessly. They could already tell that someone important was using Star Lord of Wood Brilliance to target Yi Xian. They did not dare to get involved in such a matter. Then, they dismissed their heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. They did not even dare to say goodbye to Yi Xian and left the Milky Way on an auspicious cloud. Yi Xian, 3 years are up. I'll come and test the cultivation of your soldiers. If they don't improve at all, don't blame me for not taking into account our relationship as comrades. Star Lord of Wood Brilliance pretended to be strict with Yi Xian in a reprimanding tone. Then, he floated away on an auspicious cloud with a smug look on his face. At this moment, the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy had all dispersed. Within the surging waves of the Heavenly River, there were 3,000 Navy soldiers standing there. However, their gazes towards Yi Xian were filled with too many complicated emotions. Disdain, anger, contempt, and doubt. Originally, the 3,000 Milky Way Navy soldiers respected Yi Xian very much because Yi Xian was a grand unity mystic immortal and had personally killed the essence demon that had wreaked havoc in the 3 realms. To be able to become Yi Xian's subordinates, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, this made them feel extremely honored. However, the scene they saw today completely disappointed them. Yi Xian saw the expressions of the 3,000 Navy soldiers and naturally knew what they were thinking. However, Yi Xian did not care. This was because Yi Xian knew that the 3,000 Navy soldiers in front of him were his subordinates in the Celestial Court. He wanted to use the 3,000 Navy soldiers as a foundation to let everyone in the 3 realms know the name Yi Xian in the future. I don't care what you think of me, but from today onwards, you are my soldiers. I only need you to act according to my will. If anyone dares to feign compliance, don't blame me for being ruthless, Yi Xian said calmly. TCH, perfected Lord Yi, you can only show your authority to us heavenly soldiers. That's right. How would us puny immortals dare to resist? If you have the ability, go and show it to Star Lord Wood Brilliance. We find it laughable that he is oppressing us here. The 3,000 Celestial River Navy soldiers mocked and ridiculed. Although their voices were very soft, they were clearly noisy when gathered together. Yi Xian smiled and did not blame them. After all, these people were his subordinates. Time would slowly prove everything. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that he had to be serious when recruiting people. Even if he killed a few noisy people, it would only have the opposite effect. If he wanted to win the loyalty of the 3,000 Navy soldiers, he had to establish a true authority. Seeing that Yi Xian was not angry, the 3,000 Navy soldiers mocked and ridiculed him even more unscrupulously. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void without saying a word. After a few days, the 3,000 Navy soldiers felt bored and could only train in the Celestial River. However, no one noticed that although Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in the void, a speck of immortal light surged out from between his eyebrows and quietly disappeared into the void. Star-Lord Wood Brilliance's residence. Although Star-Lord Wood Brilliance was one of the 9 great Star Lords and was in charge of 10,000 Celestial River Navy soldiers, he was only in the middle of the Celestial Realm. He did not even have his own palace. Chapter 250. However, today, Wood Brilliant Star-Lord's face was glowing. The fairy children and fairies in his residence, as well as some rare beasts, were all rewarded by him. Star-Lord, what made you so happy today? Can you tell me about it? A fairy dressed in a red palace gauze leaned softly in Wood Brilliant Star-Lord's arms. She was drawing circles on his chest with her jade-like hands, as if she was waiting for him to do whatever he wanted. Ha! Wood Brilliant Star-Lord drank all the wine in his cup. His broad palm rubbed the soft part of the girl, causing her to moan in a fanciful manner. Do you know that Taoist Yi Xian? Of course. This primordial unity Xian Immortal was conferred the title of Demon Slayer Sage Lord by His Majesty. He seems to be an extraordinary person. Ha! What extraordinary person? Doesn't he still have to obey my orders? Wood Brilliant Star-Lord smiled complacently and told her what had happened today. Hearing Wood Brilliant Star-Lord's narration, Fairy Hong's expression changed slightly. She said, Star-Lord, this Taoist is a primordial unity Xian Immortal. You have offended him today. Doesn't that mean? Wood Brilliant Star-Lord smiled and said, My little sweetheart, don't worry. If I don't have some confidence, how can I offend this person? After saying that, Wood Brilliant Star-Lord looked around. He lowered his voice and said complacently, Let me tell you a secret. Yesterday, His Majesty sent Venus Tai Bai to tell me to teach this Yi Xian a lesson. Obviously, this person has offended Jade Emperor. His immortal path will not last long. Moreover, Jade Emperor will certainly remember this in his heart. I am not far from a meteoric rise. Wood Brilliant Star-Lord became more and more complacent. The fairy in his arms giggled. However, they did not notice that a figure was strolling toward them outside the door. I don't know if you will have a meteoric rise, but I know that today you will die without an intact corpse. Suddenly, Yi Xian's cold voice was heard. Wood Brilliant Star-Lord was stunned. Then, his expression changed greatly. He said, Who is talking? Wang. The void rippled as immortal light bloomed. When Yi Xian appeared in front of the Wood Brilliant Star Monarch, he was instantly dumbfounded. It took him several dozen breaths to recover. How dare you? Without my summons, how dare you? Boom! Before Wood Brilliant Star-Lord could rebuke him, Yi Xian unleashed his primordial immortal ray, which transformed into an immortal binding rope and imprisoned Wood Brilliant Star-Lord. True monarchy, let's talk things over. Fellow Taoist, please don't be impulsive. The Wood Brilliant Star-Lord's face was ghastly pale. This was because Yi Xian was radiating with demonic light in his eyes. When his eyes opened and closed, they were filled with viciousness and malice. Yi Xian was clearly trying to silence him. The Wood Brilliant Star-Lord no longer had the time to ponder why Yi Xian would emit a demonic light. His heart was trembling, and all he wanted to do was escape this calamity. A mere true immortal dares to be impudent in front of me? Do you not know how to write the word death? Yi Xian's face was sinister as he strolled toward him. With each step he took, Wood Brilliant Star-Lord's teeth were chattering. He put on a fierce front and said, Yi Dao Yu, this is the celestial court. If you kill me, you will not be able to escape punishment. The Jade Emperor will not let you go. Die. Yi Xian did not waste any more words. The primordial immortal ray annihilated everything. It carried an extremely terrifying murderous intent and directly blew Wood Brilliant Star Lord into a cloud of blood mist. Even his spirit dissipated under the primordial immortal ray. Don't kill me. The red muslin fairy's face was pale as she knelt on the ground. She was only a concubine of Wood Brilliant Star Lord, and her cultivation was only at the early stage of the fairy immortal realm. How could she be a match for Yi Xian? She pleaded with Yi Xian in a trembling voice. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's face was sinister. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was only ruthlessness. When he struck out with his palm, the fairy's soul was scattered and she died. Revenge should not be delayed. When killing someone, one must strike at their heart and kill them all, leaving no one alive. This had always been Yi Xian's principle of doing things. There was no exception even in the earthly immortal realm. A large formation isolated Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. A silent killing was going on. A large number of fairy children and fairies were killed. The rare and exotic beasts that roamed in the residence all died tragically at the hands of Yi Xian. Buzz! Yi Xian waved his hand and dispersed the formation. When he stepped out, there was no living creature left in Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. The strong smell of blood wafted out. He had slaughtered the entire family, leaving no one alive. Yi Xian did not kill Wood Brilliant Star Lord on the spot because the 100,000 Celestial River Navy was nearby. He had just entered the Celestial Court and had not yet gained a firm foothold. It was not good for him to cause trouble. Although Yi Xian did not lose his temper on the spot, it did not mean that he was a good person. On the contrary, he was an extremely vicious person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Although he could not do anything to Wood Brilliant Star Lord on the surface, it was a piece of cake for Yi Xian to kill such a nonentity behind his back. Of course, Yi Xian's actions would certainly cause an uproar in the Celestial Court. They would also investigate the real culprit behind the scenes. Yi Xian would also become the biggest suspect. But, so what? Yi Xian's primordial spirit had left his body, and he had used the primordial spirit void's secret technique. He had even slaughtered Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence, leaving no living creature behind, not even their souls. Even if the immortals of the Heaven Realm and the Jade Emperor knew that he had done it, what could they do without evidence? Moreover, Yi Xian was establishing his authority. He was telling the Jade Emperor and the immortals that he was not easy to bully. If they wanted to test him, they had to be prepared to pay a price. Yi Xian could endure silently, but he was not weak. When it was time to attack, he would not be soft-hearted. This was also the reason why he could reach where he was today. In the vast celestial river, the 3,000 Navy soldiers were still training, but everyone was indifferent. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void, motionless. He only slowly opened his eyes when a bit of his primordial spirit returned. His entire body exuded the unique transcendent temperament of an immortal. There was no longer the ferocious expression on his face when he destroyed Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. At the same time, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals patrolled Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence and naturally discovered this tragic scene. They reported it to the immortals of the Celestial Court in horror until they reached the Jade Emperor. The Celestial Court was shaken, and the immortals were in an uproar. How long had it been? Tens of thousands of years. Other than the monkey who had caused havoc in the Celestial Court and committed such a bloody crime, no one had heard of any immortal dying tragically in their own residence for tens of thousands of years. Although Wood Brilliant Star Lord's immortal position was not high, he was still one of the immortals. If they did not find out who did it, it would be a slap to the Celestial Court's face. In the Lingxiao Hall, the Jade Emperor's face was gloomy as he sat on the Emperor's throne. Below him stood the civil and military immortals, making the atmosphere in the entire Lingxiao Hall extremely oppressive. Your Majesty, Wood Brilliant Star Lord has always been kind to others. Moreover, he is a true immortal. The person who killed him must be a primordial unity mystic immortal or above. Zhang Tianshi stepped forward and said in a loud voice. This evil demon is vicious. Not only did he destroy Wood Brilliant Star Lord's soul, but he also did not spare the living beings in his residence. If the Celestial Court does not investigate this matter strictly and catch the culprit, the dignity of the Celestial Court will be gone, an immortal official said bitterly. Humph. The Fire Lord stepped forward and knelt before the Jade Emperor. He said, Your Majesty, the Demon Slayer Lord Xiansheng is the biggest suspect in this matter. Today, the Wood Lord has just punished him. If he holds a grudge, he may be able to do such a cruel thing. How dare you? Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Life stepped forward with the dignity of a primordial unity golden immortal. He pointed at Fire Brilliant Star Lord and said angrily, Yi Dao Yu is a Taoist. How can he do such a thing? Heavenly Lord Longevity Life, I'm not saying that true immortal Yi is the culprit. It's just that he is the most suspicious, Fire Brilliant Star Lord said righteously. In fact, the immortals and the Jade Emperor all knew that this must be Yi Xian's doing. The Wood Brilliant Star Lord had just punished him and died miserably in his residence in less than half a day. Since Yi Xian was able to kill the Origin Devil, killing a mere Wood Brilliant Star Lord couldn't be any easier. However, the immortals present were a little surprised. Yi Xian was too cruel. This was the Celestial Court, not the chaotic Earth Immortal Realm. Wasn't he looking for trouble by doing this? Summon Demon Slayer to the Lingxiao Palace. The Jade Emperor's dignified voice made the immortals look at him. They could see that the Jade Emperor's eyes were filled with unquenchable anger. It was obvious that there would be a good show to watch. Chapter 251. The Heavenly River. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the air with an expressionless face. He quietly watched the training of the 3,000 Navy soldiers below him. Every single one of the 3,000 Navy soldiers was dejected, unable to display any of their bravery. From the beginning to the end, Yi Xian did not reprimand or blame them. He allowed the 3,000 Navy soldiers to train lazily in the Heavenly River. This made the 3,000 Navy soldiers look down on Yi Xian more and more. Perfected cultivator Yi, look at what you have done. Suddenly, an auspicious cloud streaked across the distant sky. Before Venus Taibai arrived, his harsh voice had already been heard. Such a scene naturally stunned the 3,000 Navy soldiers. They all gathered their gazes on Venus Taibai. They did not know why the most tactful immortal in the Celestial Court was so flustered and exasperated. Yi Xian had already expected Venus Taibai's arrival. His expression did not change. He looked at Venus Taibai and asked in confusion, What do you mean, fellow Taoist? What have I done? Looking at Yi Xian's confused face, Venus Taibai was slightly stunned. Then, his face turned cold and he said, Perfected cultivator Yi, I don't want to criticize you. You have just entered the Celestial Court. Although your position is too low, you should not have killed Star Lord of Wood Brilliance. Now, the Jade Emperor is furious and wants to summon you to the Lingxiao Palace. You'd better come with me quickly. What a joke. Yi Xian's smile disappeared. His entire person turned cold. He said in a cold voice, Venus Taibai, you can eat pills indiscriminately, but you can't speak carelessly. You said that I killed Star Lord of Wood Brilliance. Do you have any evidence? You. Looking at Yi Xian's gloomy face, Venus Taibai's heart trembled. Only then did he realize that there was something wrong with his words. Yi Xian's rhetorical question made him speechless. Evidence? Venus Taibai did not have any evidence. Even the Jade Emperor and the Immortals did not have any evidence. However, the truth was right in front of them. As a primordial unity Xian immortal, Yi Xian could cast his primordial spirit out of his body. It would be a piece of cake for him to kill a Star Lord of Brilliance would. However, Venus Tai Bai was a slick person. When he saw Yi Xian's gloomy face, he smiled flatteringly and said, "I was speaking nonsense." However, the Jade Emperor was enraged by the massacre of the Wood Brilliance Star Lord's residence. "He ordered me to summon you. Please come with me now." "Alright, since the Jade Emperor wants to see me, I'd like to see who dares to slander me. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer, I won't let this matter rest." Wang. Billions of soul-suppressing banners surged through the void. Billions of miserable cries could be heard. Terrifying winds howled in all directions. Yi Xian's expression was cold. He rode on an auspicious cloud and shot towards the bullfighting palace's numinous sky hall. Hiss. Looking at Yi Xian's attitude, Venus Tai Bai's expression changed drastically. He could not help but gasp. Only then did he remember that Yi Xian was suspected to be the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jingxian. He even had the cultivation to kill essence demons. How could he be easily bullied? "Perfected cultivator Yi, don't be angry. Listen to me." Venus Tai Bai did not dare to delay. He rode on an auspicious cloud and hurriedly chased after Yi Xian. After the two left, the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy soldiers were dumbfounded. They did not come to their senses for a long time. Is the Wood Brilliance Star Lord dead? Should be. Otherwise, why would His Majesty be so furious and order Venus Tai Bai to summon Perfected Cultivator Yi? I found it strange. Perfected Cultivator Yi didn't move or say anything just now. It seems that he used the primordial spirit projection technique to kill the Wood Brilliance Star Lord. Shoo, don't talk nonsense. If Perfected Cultivator Yi hears this, he won't have a good time. Tisk, if you ask me, Perfected Cultivator Yi doesn't show his true colors. There were 100,000 Navy soldiers beside him just now. Of course, he couldn't attack the Wood Brilliance Star Lord. Now it seems that our Perfected Cultivator Yi is not a simple person. Perfected Cultivator Yi is going to suffer now that His Majesty is angry. Whether he admits it or not, I'm afraid he will be severely punished. All kinds of discussions came from the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy soldiers. Apparently, their impression of Yi Xian had changed greatly because of what Yi Xian had done. However, they were not optimistic about the outcome of Yi Xian going to the Lingxiao Hall. In the Lingxiao Hall of the Bullfighting Palace, the Jade Emperor sat on the throne and the Immortals stood side by side. Thousands of rays of auspicious light and immortal qi rose from the clouds, illuminating the entire Lingxiao Hall solemnly. Summon Perfected Cultivator Demon Slayer to the hall. An immortal official announced. Outside the Divine Wind Hall, Yi Xian, accompanied by Venus Tai Bai, strode into the Lingxiao Hall with the soul-subduing banner in his hand. Hiss. When the Immortals saw Yi Xian holding the soul-subduing banner and emitting a strong evil aura, they all narrowed their eyes and lowered their heads slightly. A trace of surprise flashed across their eyes. Obviously, the Immortals had expected the Jade Emperor to be angry. After entering the Lingxiao Hall, Perfected Cultivator Demon Slayer should immediately kneel and kowtow to ask for forgiveness. However, they did not expect that the situation was completely different from what they had imagined. How dare you, Yi Xian? You killed the Wood Brilliance Star Lord and actually slaughtered his entire residence. This kind of demonic behavior is simply outrageous. The Fire Lord took a step forward and pointed at Yi Xian as he angrily rebuked. Your Majesty, Yi Xian has no respect for the heavenly rules. He has done such a cruel thing. He should be stripped of his immortal record and sent to the animal path to experience 1,000 samsara. Military Star Lord stepped forward and reported to the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the three realms, covered his face with a veil and said in a dignified and harsh voice, Yi Xian, do you admit your crime? Admit my crime? Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. He strode forward with the soul-subduing banner in his hand and stood in the center of the Lingxiao Hall. He looked around at the immortals and finally looked at the Jade Emperor. Jade Emperor, you said that I am guilty. What crime have I committed? How dare you call His Majesty by his full name? This is the Lingxiao Hall. How dare a little immortal like you act so presumptuously? Fire Brilliant Star Lord and Wuda Star Lord rebuked loudly, but the immortals' expressions changed. They quietly sized up Yi Xian, and their eyes were filled with shock. Could it be that Yi Xian wanted to rebel against the celestial court? You killed the Wood Brilliant Star Lord and slaughtered his entire mansion. Isn't that what you did? The Jade Emperor said majestically, and his vast immortal pressure rolled in the Lingxiao Hall. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was fearless as he abruptly stabbed the soul-suppressing banner into the white jade ground, causing a loud bang to ring out. His expression was gloomy as he said, since the Jade Emperor said that I killed the Wood Brilliant Star Lord, then show me the evidence to prove that I did it. As Yi Xian finished speaking, the entire Lingxiao Hall was dead silent. Even the Jade Emperor's expression was extremely gloomy. It was because he could not show any evidence, and Yi Xian had done it flawlessly. Looking at the Jade Emperor's silence, Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. He believed in his methods. With the secret technique of the primordial spirit void, even if the celestial court had a secret treasure like the divine mirror, they would definitely not be able to find out that he was the one who did it. How dare you? The truth is right in front of you. How can you argue? Fire Brilliant Star Lord said angrily. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was not moved by Fire Brilliant Star Lord's angry rebuke. Instead, he looked at the Jade Emperor with narrowed eyes and said in a low voice, Jade Emperor, please uphold justice. Chapter 252. Yi Xian, I am the Lord of the Three Realms. I can see through everything. I will definitely not let you be wronged. I can only put you in jail first. After the matter is investigated, I will give you justice. Where are the four heavenly kings? I am here. The four heavenly kings stepped forward and bowed to the Jade Emperor. For the time being, keep Yi Xian in custody. When the truth is found out in the future, justice will be served to the Yi family. The Jade Emperor said sternly with a righteous attitude. The four heavenly kings were stunned. They could only walk toward Yi Xian awkwardly. It was obvious that they had to follow the Jade Emperor's orders. Humph. Suddenly, Yi Xian snorted and waved the soul-suppressing banner in his hand. The entire Lingxiao Hall shook violently, and the screams of ghosts could be heard. I am the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jingxian. I am beyond the three realms and not in the five elements. Even the celestial court has no right to detain me. If the Jade Emperor does this, then don't blame me for being unreasonable. Rumble. The tiny immortal light shot in all directions. The soul-suppressing banner swayed. Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands, and an extremely terrifying aura spread out. The four heavenly kings' expressions changed drastically. They did not know what to do. How dare you, Yi Xian? Are you rebelling? Jade Emperor, this Taoist is arrogant and domineering. We should send him to the immortal slaying platform. The Fire Lord and Wuda Lord shouted angrily. The numinous treasures in their hands shone with bright immortal light. They had already joined forces with the four heavenly kings to surround Yi Xian. They looked like they were going to attack Yi Xian together. The celestial court has gone too far today. Don't blame me for being presumptuous. Yi Xian's expression was cold. He waved the soul-suppressing banner violently. He did not care about the immortals present at all. He formed a seal with both hands, and a large amount of tiny immortal light suppressed the 4 heavenly kings and the 2 celestial lords. Bang bang bang. Immortal light exploded, and the soaring clouds shook. When Yi Xian attacked, if not for the protection of the soaring clouds palace's heaven-guarding formation, Yi Xian's attack would have shattered the soaring clouds palace. Puff! Puff! The 4 heavenly kings and the 2 star lords were only true immortals. How could they be a match for Yi Xian? With just one strike, the 6 of them were heavily injured. Blood continuously flowed from the corners of their mouths. The immortals watched coldly. From time to time, they would size up Yi Xian and secretly observe the changes in the Jade Emperor's expression. At this moment, the Jade Emperor's expression was gloomy. Zhou Shi's immortal light was slightly chaotic. His jade-like palms were clenched and released at times. A hint of killing intent appeared in his eyes when he looked at Yi Xian. However, he quickly suppressed that emotion. In fact, what happened today was just a test by the Jade Emperor to Yi Xian. If Yi Xian surrendered, it would prove that he had no backing. The Jade Emperor could naturally do whatever he wanted to Yi Xian. However, the Jade Emperor did not expect Yi Xian's attitude to be so intense. He had the intention to destroy everything. This also made him afraid. He kept guessing who Yi Xian had as his backer. Actually, Yi Xian seemed to be arrogant and despotic right now, and he didn't seem to be afraid at all. In fact, he was panicking in his heart. This was his bet, and he was also taking risks. From the moment the Wood Brilliant Star Lord targeted him, Yi Xian knew that the Jade Emperor was behind it. If he showed his weakness today, the outcome that awaited him would definitely be extremely miserable. Not to mention that there were several primordial Unity Golden Immortals present, Yi Xian could not see through the Jade Emperor's cultivation. If the Jade Emperor personally attacked him, even if he had a secret technique like the Primordial Spirit Void, he might not be able to escape from the Heaven Realm. Back then, when the monkey wreaked havoc in the Heavenly Palace, it was because his backer was strong enough. The Jade Emperor could not afford to offend him at all. He could only let the monkey do whatever he wanted and did not dare to do anything. However, Yi Xian knew his own family's matters. He didn't have any roots and was just alone. How could he compare to that monkey? Yi Xian could only display a fearless expression, as if he had a backer behind him. Only by doing this would the Jade Emperor become even more fearful of him. The Jade Emperor was testing Yi Xian. Wasn't Yi Xian testing the Jade Emperor too? This was a silent contest between the two of them. It was a contest to see who showed fear first and who would lose first. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that if he could survive this calamity, he would be able to establish his prestige very well. He could also lay a foundation in the celestial court and let the immortals in the heaven realm know that he, Yi Xian, was not a simple person. Not everyone could provoke him. The Jade Emperor's expression was uncertain. He silently watched Yi Xian's expression, trying to see the panic on his face. However, Yi Xian was unbridled. When he waved the soul-subduing banner, a large number of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were sent flying. There was no sign of him being timid at all. All of you, back off. Minister Yi, don't be angry. The Jade Emperor finally could not help but pretended to be dignified and said, Buzz. Yi Xian kept the soul-subduing banner. His expression was resolute and unyielding. The immortals looked at him with a strange look in their eyes. They were all guessing what kind of background Yi Xian had to dare to resist the Jade Emperor in the Lingxiao Hall. Jade Emperor, since the Celestial Court thinks that I, Yi Xian, am easy to bully, then I don't care about the position of immortal. From now on, I will go to the lower realm and be a carefree scattered immortal. As Yi Xian spoke, he kept the soul-subduing banner and was about to walk out of the Lingxiao Hall. However, how could the Jade Emperor let him go? Minister Yi, don't be angry. I just want to test your cultivation. I will entrust you with a heavy responsibility. How can I really put you in the heavenly prison? The Jade Emperor smiled and stood up. He was no longer angry and kept comforting Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped. He knew that he had to stop when he was ahead. If he really did not know when to stop, the Jade Emperor would fall out with him. This was not the result he wanted to see. Your Majesty, the matter of the Wood Brilliant Star Lord has nothing to do with me. There must be a villain who deceived Your Majesty. Your Majesty, please help me. Yi Xian pretended to be distressed and said. Buzz. Suddenly, when the immortals were watching coldly from the side, thousands of rays of light bloomed in the sky. A golden talisman fell from the 33 heavens. When the golden talisman spread out, billions of rays of golden light covered the Lingxiao Hall. Whether it was the Jade Emperor or the immortals present, they all widened their eyes and were completely stunned on the spot. Yu Qing's decree. The Jade Emperor exclaimed in shock. His face turned extremely pale. The immortals even kowtowed. Every immortal's eyes were filled with panic. At the beginning of the world, Tao was born. Yi Xian fell from the primeval age and returned to the Tao sect. He is now conferred the title of Yu Qing's heavenly guardian. Rows of golden words filled the sky. When the golden words dissipated, a golden talisman descended, causing Yi Xian to receive it in a daze. His pupils slightly constricted. Yi Daoyu, aren't you going to thank Yuanshi Tianzuan? Venus Taibai reminded with a trembling voice. I obey Yuanshi Tianzuan's decree. Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down. He held the golden decree in his hand and said respectfully. Outside the 33 heavens, Jade Palace. A Taoist was surrounded by the aura of chaos. No one could see his face clearly. However, when he opened and closed his eyes, they seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. He was looking down at Yi Xian in the heavenly palace. Heaven and earth have been turned upside down. Saints don't appear. Murderous star has appeared and the heavenly Tao has collapsed. Let me see how far this kid can go in this immeasurable calamity. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.